I get stronger by spending money in Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1, 3 Oscar winners and 1 fool. The whistle was so loud that it was a little piercing. The platform was busy. A boy leaning against the window in the train compartment knocked his head hard. He was wearing a red and white plaid shirt, with fair skin and a thin figure. His brown hair was softly draped over his ears, and there were broken hairs on his forehead. His handsome face was full of excitement. No one could have imagined that there was an adult soul hidden in the young body. He was originally a pig farm numerical planner. He graduated from a third-year college in Zhejiang and joined the company. After several years of hard work, he was about to become a supervisor. Unexpectedly, he stayed up all night to finish his work, and the next day his soul was transferred to the child who died suddenly due to excitement when he crossed the 9th platform. When he came here, he was still confused and didn't understand the situation. After seeing the conspicuous 9th station sign and the steaming Hogwarts train, he immediately woke up. Isn't this the mobile game of his own project team? He stayed up all night to optimize the numerical content of the game. How did he come to the Harry Potter world when he just closed his eyes and wanted to sleep? After groping his body for a long time and leaving 2 or 3 red marks on his white and tender forearms, he was sure that he was not dreaming, but had really traveled through time, and traveled through time to a little kid with magical powers. Then he changed into the expression at the beginning, leaning against the window and watching the parents on the platform reluctantly bid farewell to their children. His parents in his previous life had divorced and formed new families, so he didn't have to worry about the elderly issue. As a single dog who had never had a girlfriend, he was free in his original world. When the Hogwarts train sounded a loud whistle again, the train officially started. He stared at the platform that was getting farther and farther away, waved goodbye to his past self, and ushered in a brand new magical world. Since he had traveled through time to the world of Harry Potter, he should live well and live a different and wonderful life, so that his life would not be in vain. The train turned the corner, and platform 9 completely disappeared from his sight, and he turned his head back. At this time, the compartment door was gently knocked. "Come in." 2 red-haired heads squeezed in. They looked exactly the same. Even the moles at the corners of their eyes were in the same position. "Fortunately there are empty seats here," the 2 said in unison. "Otherwise we would have to stay with Percy all the way. I don't want to listen to his nagging. Let's hide here and don't let him find us." The 2 not only had a tacit understanding, but also spoke in very similar tones. They entered the compartment and moved in unison. They first put their luggage on the shelf above their heads, then took off their shirts that were obviously too short, revealing a black formal robe with a lion standing tall on the chest. While the 2 brothers were taking off their clothes, the compartment door was knocked again. After getting permission, a black-haired boy walked in. "Hello," the boy said with a shy smile. He put down his luggage and introduced himself. "I'm Alan Bott, a first-year student." "Hello, George Weasley and Fred Weasley." After sitting down, the red-haired brother stretched out his hand. "Second-year Gryffindor, Joel Taylor." He stretched out his hand and shook hands with the 3 of them. "First-year student." After crossing over, he inherited all the memories of the original owner of the body, so he naturally knew the name of this body. "Aha, 2 first-year students." The Weasley brothers winked at each other. "By the way, do you know how to sort the houses?" "Of course I know. Joel read the original book a lot when he was in the project team." "How can a pig farm make a Krypton Guild game without understanding the plot?" Knowing that the Weasley brothers were only in the 2nd year, Joel immediately calculated in his mind that it was 1990 and there was still a year before the original protagonist Harry Potter entered school. But when he saw the Weasley brothers looking like they were plotting something, his heart moved, and he asked blankly, "I don't know." Alan also looked confused and knew nothing about the sorting. "Hey." Upon hearing this, the Weasley brothers became excited. "We'll tell you secretly, but don't tell anyone else." Joel nodded repeatedly like a chick pecking at rice. "Just tell me. I won't tell anyone." Alan next to him also showed a longing look. Joel's superb acting skills combined with a fair and handsome face successfully confuse the Weasley brothers. When you are sorted, you will take turns to fight a Welsh green dragon, and your performance in the battle will determine which house you are suitable for. Joel couldn't tell whether the person who was speaking was George or Fred. Welsh green dragon? Joel cooperated and opened his mouth wide, showing an unbelievable expression, but he was laughing secretly in his heart. The Weasley brothers took him for a real muggle. As for Alan, he screamed directly, but fortunately the sound insulation effect of the partition was first class, and the scream did not travel far. That's right. The Weasley brothers said in unison. We fought fiercely with the green dragon for more than 10 minutes, and our robes were scorched by the fire before we were able to enter Gryffindor. The two children's faces were full of pride. It sounded like the truth. The Weasley brothers' acting skills were not inferior to Joel's. If he hadn't known the plot in advance, he would have been confused. Alan on the side was like this. His mouth was so wide that he could only fit an egg. He was obviously stunned by the words of the Weasley brothers. At this moment, Joel felt that there were 3 Oscar winners and a fool who was deceived in the carriage. The Weasley brothers sat opposite and saw the shocked expressions of Joel and Alan, and their satisfaction became stronger. But the happy time of the two brothers did not last long. The door of the compartment was knocked for the 3rd time, and a boy with red hair and horn-rimmed glasses walked in. He looked gentle and refined. George, Fred, we finally found an empty compartment. Charlie is getting impatient. You two should hurry up. He pushed his glasses while speaking, and glanced at Joel and Alan casually. Okay, Percy. The Weasley brothers' faces fell, and they sighed in unison. They took down the luggage on the shelf, put the shirt they took off on their shoulders, and walked out around Percy. At the moment, when they were about to leave the compartment, the Weasley brothers took action together, covered Percy's head with their shirts, and rubbed his hair vigorously. Percy let out a suppressed and irritated roar, and when he pulled off the 2 shirts on his head, the Weasley brothers had already run away with their luggage laughing. His face turned as red as his hair color, and he ignored the 2 people in the compartment, closed the door heavily, and ran to chase the Weasley brothers. Now only Joel and Alan were left in the compartment. What should I do when I get to Hogwarts? Alan was as anxious as an ant on a hot pot. I can't use a single spell. New book released. Please collect, vote, and invest. Every vote and every collection is very important to this book. I kowtow to you here. Bang bang bang. Chapter 2, Krypton Gold System. Joel glanced at him, and found that Alan also had a handsome face. Although he was a little inferior to himself, he could attract many girls' attention. When he walked outside, Joel touched his face narcissistically. When he just came through, he was almost stunned by his handsome face facing the car window. As a game planner, Joel is well aware of the advantages of having a good-looking character. Many players will say all kinds of disgusting names to you, and are willing to empty their wallets for you. A handsome face not only makes people happy, but also enhances people's sense of substitution. After all, every handsome face is a true portrayal of readers and players. Joel, what spells do you know? Can you teach me? Alan was a little anxious. Joel yawned. Looking at Alan's nervous appearance, he felt interested in teasing him, and did not tell him the true situation of the sorting ceremony. I read 2 spell books during the summer vacation. There are some small spells on them. Joel had some intention of showing off. If it were in his previous life, he would have comforted him that it was no big deal, and told him the truth. But after crossing over, his whole state of mind was completely different. Now that he was no longer facing the unemployment crisis brought about by performance appraisals, and the burden of life was gone, Joel began to think about how to make his life more exciting. After hearing what Joel said, Alan immediately calmed down, staring at his hands intently, like an audience member who wanted to find loopholes in a magician's trick. Joel took out the wand from his pocket, which was bought by the original owner from Ollivander. He took out a piece of white paper from his suitcase, and placed it on the table, cleared his throat, pointed the wand at the white paper and read aloud, Wingardium Leviosa. This is a more famous spell in the original book, and its main ability is to make objects float. Harry and Ron once used this spell to knock down a giant monster. Joel made a game numerical calculation for this spell. In those days, this strange spell has been lingering in his mind, and now it is still fresh in his memory. When he thinks back, the white paper on the table moved slightly, but it was barely noticeable and difficult to detect if you didn't look closely. The atmosphere in the compartment fell into awkwardness. Alan blinked and looked at Joel with a silly face. Ahem. Joel coughed to cover up his embarrassment. Just a small mistake. Maybe I mixed up the steps of casting a spell. He stood up and took the suitcase off the shelf and took out a book, Standard Spells, Level 1 from it. He opened the book and flipped through 2 pages, and he found the levitation spell. First wave and then shake, and then recite the spell clearly and accurately. Joel waved and shook the wand in his hand, twisting it into a flower, Wingardium Leviosa. Joel could feel a certain force flowing from the fingertips of his right hand to the wand, and then a sense of obstruction arose, as if a stream of water was cut off, and then it flowed out from the tip of the wand. He was surprised to find that he could control the force to attach to the white paper, and he could use his mind to drive the force to lift the white paper up. Is this the magic power hidden in his body? The white paper did not float up much. Joel guessed that it was related to the magic power he spent. But Alan on the side had already widened his eyes and clapped. Joel, you are amazing. How did you do it? As soon as Joel was distracted, the magic power attached to the white paper dissipated immediately. His mind was empty, and the white paper slowly fell. At this time, a ding sound suddenly rang in his ears. A translucent panel appeared in front of him, with a line of Chinese written on it. Pipi Shrimp Crypt and Gold System. There was another line of letters at the bottom. Pipi Xie Kajinxitang. A transparent dialog box suddenly appeared in front of him. Congratulations on successfully releasing the first spell and becoming the first host of the Pipi Shrimp Crypt and Gold System. This system strives to help the host have a better life experience. I wish you a happy life in the magic world. Pipi Shrimp Crypt and Gold System? Joel was startled at first, and then he was ecstatic. After reading novels for so many years, there really is such a thing. He suppressed his restless heart and answered Alan's question. No problem. You look at the key points of this spell first. They are all in this book. You try it, and I will teach you. Alan took out his wand and began to practice with the content in the textbook. Joel's heart was in a mess now, and he didn't want to listen to Alan repeating the floating spell over and over again. He got up, opened the door, and walked along the corridor to the end of the train. The friction between the wheels and the rails made a clacking sound, and the sun shone right on his forehead. Leaving the narrow compartment and breathing fresh air, his nervous heart gradually calmed down. After a little attempt, Joel found that this system was firmly bound to his consciousness. With a thought in his mind, the panel of this Mantis Shrimp Crypt and Gold System was hidden. He summoned the panel, deliberately returned to the carriage, and jumped left and right in front of Alan. What are you doing? Alan finally stopped mumbling and looked at Joel, who was jumping around. It's okay. Joel sat down after making sure that Alan couldn't see the system panel, opened the compartment window, breathed in 2 breaths of fresh air, and calmed down his excitement. He began to control the system with his mind and clicked hard on the Pipi Shrimp Crypt and Gold System. The entire system was presented, and Joel saw options such as transfiguration, charms, and potions. He clicked on transfiguration and found a bunch of progress bars. They were object transfiguration, human transfiguration, summoning, and vanishing, as well as an imagus. Each progress bar said 100, and the grey word primary was displayed below. How do I upgrade this thing? Joel muttered to himself. The dialog box appeared again. Pipi Shrimp Crypt and Gold System. The host needs to use his own currency to upgrade, and every currency spent on the system will improve your ability. Of course, while Crypt and Gold, the host should also spend enough time to work hard so that you can become stronger. Seeing this system prompt, Joel was ecstatic, feeling that this was simply a system tailored for pig farm planning. Please invest, collect, and recommend. Chapter 3, Almost Becoming a Non-Agency. Joel worked in a pig farm for so long in his previous life, and he knew the purpose of the pig farm game. In addition to paying money, you also have to pay your liver, that is, time. Now his soul has been transferred to an 11-year-old child, with plenty of time, but lacking money. Now there is a great opportunity to become stronger. How can I not seize it? With this system, plus the understanding of the original plot, Joel feels that he can walk sideways in the magic world. System, what is my magic qualification? Joel was a little uneasy when he asked this question. The system answered Joel's question with a dialog box. The host's own magic qualification exceeds 43.96% of the wizards in the world, and the evaluation determines that the effect of using magic spells is average. Foreshadowing, just keep reading. In Joel's cognition, magic plays a pivotal role in battle, just like chakra in Naruto. Which powerful ninja does not have a sea of chakra? If you want to walk freely and willfully in the magic world, this magic qualification is really a bit low. Is there any solution? Joel asked hurriedly. After the system mall is opened, the host can exchange the source of magic power in the mall to refresh the magic qualification. Joel couldn't wait to ask the system how to recharge, and at the same time, took out his small purse from the suitcase. This is all the money of the original owner of the body. He counted it, and found a total of 7 galleons, 7 sickles, and 7 nuts. The currency of the magic world is all coins. The goblins cast spells on them to make them have unique codes, and cannot be copied. The front and back of the coins are engraved with some magical animals that only exist in the magic world. There is also a £5 note, with the Queen of England on the front and the Duke of Wellington on the back. The original owner of the body came from an orphanage. These pounds are pocket money for the dean to buy them candy when he is in a good mood. The magic currency such as galleons is given to him by the guide Professor McGonagall. Poverty subsidies can be received by every student who enters the school with poor family conditions. His textbooks and wands are bought with this money. The exchange rate in the magic world is more complicated. 29 copper nuts are exchanged for 1 silver sickle, and 17 silver sickles are exchanged for 1 gold galleon. If nothing unexpected happens, you can also exchange £5 for 1 galleon. When their project team was making this magic mobile game, they made a big fuss about this exchange mechanism. They can make a lot of money, their KPI will soar, and getting a full year-end bonus is not a dream. As long as you sincerely recite Pipi Shrimp Krypton Gold system is the best in the universe, and then think about the recharge amount, you can complete it. The ownership of the money used for recharge must belong to the host himself. The gold coins owned by unilateral illegal gifts will not be recognized by the system. Professional ability is divided into 5 levels: elementary, intermediate, advanced, master, and perfect. The progress bar of each level is different. The system will also issue side quests to help the host grow. I hope the host will work hard. Why does it feel that this system is more narcissistic than himself? Joel was a little puzzled, but he wanted to try the system's ability quickly. He glanced at Alan, who was holding a spell textbook in one hand and waving a wand in the other hand and muttering something, and he got up and left. The Pipi Xie Krypton Gold system is the most useful in the universe. Joel stood at the rear of the train, silently thinking in his heart, and recharged the extra £5 into the system. Joel saw that there was an extra gold coin and the personal information at the lower right corner of the system panel, and guessed that this thing was equivalent to gold galleons. It was indeed a 5:1 exchange rate. The £5 in his hand disappeared without a trace, as if they had never appeared in this world. Congratulations to the host for making the first recharge. The first recharge gift package has been issued. The system prompt appeared again. Joel clicked on the personal information and saw a large gift package with golden light in the inventory, which was particularly eye-catching under the plain system panel. Damn. Why is it getting more and more like the taste of our own Krypton Gold mobile game? Joel thought. Joel opened the first recharge gift package with his mind, and after a burst of golden special effects, it turned into 2 things lying in the inventory, and then a prompt interface appeared. Congratulations to the host for getting a lucky turn. Congratulations to the host for obtaining brain occlumency. Intermediate. Joel's eyes moved and looked at the inventory. Occlumency? This is a good thing. The moment Joel saw the grey booklet, he remembered a fatal problem, and a cold sweat broke out on his back. He just remembered how the sorting hat judges a person's characteristics. Legilimency. If he hadn't learned occlumency, wouldn't all his secrets be uncovered the moment he put on the sorting hat? Time travel, system, all the unreasonable phenomena happened to Joel. How should he explain it? Joel tried to open the grey booklet with his mind, and a strong white light burst out from the booklet, almost blinding Joel's eyes. Then he felt like a basin of cold seawater poured into his brain, and the excitement and anxiety in his mind were instantly extinguished. His eyes became calm, and there was no expression on his face, like a piece of solid ice, and his muscles seemed to be dead. He looked at his face in the glass on the compartment door, and he was not satisfied with this paralyzed face. I can't be like Snape and always have an expressionless face, right? Joel, who wants to travel in the magic world, doesn't want to have an expressionless face all the time. Ruah. Joel made a face at the glass, sticking out his tongue, and rolling his eyes upward. What are you doing? Alan's experiment with the levitation spell was not successful. He looked at the white paper on the table at a loss. Just when he wanted to relax, when his eyes moved to the cubicle door, a grimace suddenly came into his eyes, which scared him. Oh, I accidentally strained my body while moving in the corridor. Joel felt that the muscles on his face were finally not so stiff, and he quickly changed his face at the speed of light, making a painful expression. Are you okay? Alan was a little worried. Do you need any ointment? I have them in my box. No need. Joel saw that this black-haired boy was as easy to deceive as Chihanhan, so he didn't have any idea of fooling him. I'll just rest for a while. He sat on the chair rubbing his ankle, his eyes empty. Alan saw that his face was not right, and he didn't dare to breathe. He looked straight ahead and sat upright, just glancing at Joel from time to time. Joel was checking the system. He still had a lucky wheel that he hadn't opened. This wheel has 5 colors: black, white, blue, purple, and orange, representing 5 areas. The proportion of the area occupied by the 5 colors is reduced accordingly, with the black area being the largest and the orange area being the smallest. According to the instructions below the wheel, Joel learned that the prize represented by each color of the wheel is different. The orange prize is the most valuable, and the black prize is the cheapest. Amitabha, God bless, thank and praise the Lord, Merlin. Joel muttered in his heart, and clicked the start button on the wheel with his mind. The turntable spun rapidly, and the 5 colors of black, white, blue, purple, and orange merged into one. It was not until 5 seconds later that the turntable gradually slowed down. No black, no black. Joel closed his eyes tightly and prayed for the blessings of all the gods in the sky. When he opened his eyes again, he saw that the pointer was at the boundary of the white area. If it was a little bit outside, it would be black. Joel breathed a sigh of relief, feeling quite happy that he had survived a disaster. Joel saw a prompt appear on the system interface. Congratulations on winning the prize in the white area. The prize will be open for you now. You opened a white primary gift box and got a bottle of primary refreshing potion. I hope you will have better luck next time. Please vote, invest, and collect. This book does not abuse the protagonist. The author swears here. Just read on. Chapter 4, Arrival. A bottle of white potion lay quietly in the system inventory, with a description attached. Primary refreshing potion. Can better concentrate the mind and improve the host's attention in a short period of time. Not bad, at least not the most rubbish black gift box. Joel was happy. But in Alan's perspective, Joel became a little weird. His eyes changed from dull to angry, his right hand was still pinching his thigh tightly, and his whole body was shaking slightly. Then Joel's mouth corners suddenly rose slightly, his facial muscles changed from tight to relaxed, and his whole body was much more relaxed, and he even began to shake his legs. Alan was a little scared by Joel's series of changes. After a shiver, he quickly lowered his head and continued to read. He originally wanted to ask Joel about the key points of the floating spell, but he was scared and swallowed it. Joel quickly adjusted his mood and hid the system. He didn't plan to use the remaining points now, and he would be flexible when school really started. There was silence in the compartment for a while. When it got dark, Joel and Alan changed into the robes required by Hogwarts. Joel's black robe was second-hand and looked a little faded. His shirt and tie were new. There was a coat of arms on the tie, with a lion, eagle, badger and snake surrounding an H, and the motto of Hogwarts, "Do not disturb sleeping dragons," was written below. After getting ready, he tightened his tie and touched his handsome face in front of the compartment glass. Joel had not been able to adapt to his handsome face for a whole day. So handsome. He accidentally said the truth, and Alan beside him secretly said "Pa." He opened the compartment door and blended into the students wearing black robes like them. The two short bodies were inconspicuous, and they were squeezed by the crowded crowd, so that even their heads could not be seen. Joel was squeezed by the senior students behind him, and he got off the special train and came to the platform. First year students. A rough voice shouted loudly, echoing on the narrow platform, "Freshmen, follow me, the rest of you go to the carriage in front." A huge figure stood in the crowd, and Joel could see at a glance that this big man was more than 3 meters tall, and he was indeed the same height as in the movie. The big man was holding a lantern, and he was so tall that Joel felt that the lantern was swinging above his head, leading them like a beacon. "I'm Hagrid, responsible for guiding new freshmen. Follow me." Hagrid's voice sounded dull like an ancient bell to Joel. The old students had left, and those who followed Hagrid were all little guys like Joel. They walked forward from the platform and went down a hillside. The soil here was very slippery, and Joel and the freshmen around him had to be careful not to splash the mud on their trouser legs. The surrounding trees were dense, and the starlight outside was also blocked. Everyone was silent, and Joel could only hear the sound of feet stepping on the soil and his slightly heavy breathing. He was a little excited. Hogwarts was right in front of him. This building that only existed in movies, books, and games was within reach. At the end of this slope was a black lake. Joel recognized this place, the Black Lake, where many giant squids and mermaids lived. The second challenge of the Goblet of Fire was also held here. Usually, this was a good place for Hogwarts students to play in their spare time. On the hillside opposite the Black Lake stood the Hogwarts castle that Joel had been thinking about. The spires stood in a forest, and the towers were bathed in the bright moonlight, making the castle more sacred. "Everyone get on the boat, we have to cross this Black Lake." Hagrid shouted loudly, "Only 4 people can sit on each boat." Joel and Alan behind him boarded a small boat. Soon 2 more girls came up. The moonlight helped Joel see their faces clearly. One of the girls had smooth black hair and an East Asian face. She looked graceful and had soft features. She was not like the girl next to her with sharp edges and corners on her face. She looked aggressive from the outside. She was a very likable girl. The boat automatically sailed on the mirror-smooth surface of the Black Lake. Joel admired the magic of the magic world while enjoying the scenery of the Black Lake. It was not until the laughter came from other boats that Joel realized that his boat seemed too quiet. "Hello, I'm Joel Taylor." He introduced himself, and the girl with white skin and sporadic freckles on her face snorted coldly. Joel felt that he had not done anything to offend anyone. At most, he was a little indifferent when he first got on the boat and was not very attentive. When he saw that the girl's eyes stayed on his second-hand robe for a long time, he understood the reason in his heart. "My name is Pipi Xie. Hello." The East Asian girl smiled, and the 2 dimples on her cheeks were very cute. It was indeed her, Joel thought. There were not many celebrities among the freshmen of Hogwarts in 1990. The one who could be counted was Harry Potter's first love, Pipi Xie. Alan also introduced himself. He seemed to be not good at communicating with girls. After saying his name, his face turned red, and he didn't say anything anymore. "Bot?" The girl next to Pipi suddenly said. "Is it the bot from Bibber's Every Flavor Beans?" Alan nodded, facing the surface of the Black Lake, as if studying what magical animals were under the water. "I'm Mirita Akemo, nice to meet you." Mirita stretched out her right hand, her eyes fixed on Alan's fair and handsome face. Alan was stunned for a second, then glanced at Joel, who turned his back to admire the scenery and carefully stretched out his hand to gently hold Mirita's right hand. It was just a touch and then separated, but Mirita kept talking. "I wanted to go to the United States to play in the summer, but my mother was too busy working in the Ministry of Magic." Joel was not stupid and naturally saw that this girl was targeting Alan. She didn't even give Joel a nod or a smile, as if he was just a passerby. He didn't understand what Bertie stood for at first, but after hearing what Mirita said, he realized that Alan's last name Bertie was the same as Bertie Bott's Every Flavor Beans, the founder of Bertie Bott. So they were relatives. Mirita's behavior was undoubtedly a bit out of line in the eyes of others. Pipi Xie, who was sitting opposite Joel, smiled at him embarrassedly. Marita is always like this. Sorry, nothing, I understand. Joel didn't take it to heart. Marita didn't do anything very rude. She just looked down on his family background. Along the way, Joel admired the scenery of Black Lake at night while listening to Marita pestering Ellen with questions. Halfway through, he knew that Ellen didn't want to pay attention to this girl, who was only familiar with him, but he didn't know how to refuse. After throwing out a few topics and finding that Ellen didn't respond further, Marita, who was only 11 years old, blushed and couldn't find any decent content to chat about, so she could only start to talk about the weather. It's a nice day today. Yeah, it's nice. This conversation made Joel and Qiu want to laugh. Fortunately, this journey ended quickly. They followed Hagrid to a place like an underground dock, and then passed through a dark tunnel to the front of Hogwarts Castle. Everyone climbed up a stone staircase and gathered in front of a huge oak door. Joel looked around, trying to take Hogwarts in. Trigger the novice task, entering Hogwarts for the first time. Task goal, complete the sorting. As a novice task, this task is less difficult and has no failure penalty. Just as Joel was observing the entire castle, the system prompted again. Speak more and vote more. Audience gentlemen. Chapter 5. Talkative little Joel. This novice task seemed very simple, but Joel did not neglect it at all. He could figure out the key to this task, using the brain block technique he had learned before to avoid the detection of the sorting hat and complete the sorting. Why do I feel that the system assigned me the brain block technique as a premeditated plan? Joel watched Hagrid raise his fist as big as a casserole and knocked on the oak door 3 times. The door opened immediately, revealing a tall and thin witch in emerald green robes. Her long black hair was neatly tied in a bun, and her lips were pursed with a serious expression. It was Professor McGonagall, the head of Gryffindor College, the professor of transfiguration and the vice principal of Hogwarts. She was upright and loved by students. First-year students. Her eyes swept over a group of little people. Thank you, Hagrid. I will guide them to complete the next sorting ceremony. She waved the wand in her hand gently, letting the door open completely. Follow me, freshmen. She led the freshmen up a marble staircase to a small room upstairs, and then popularized the knowledge of the 4 colleges to them. Joel also has some understanding of the 4 colleges. In a simple summary, Gryffindor is brave and fearless, Hufflepuff is loyal and upright, Ravenclaw is wise and knowledgeable, and Slytherin is selfish and shrewd. In the early and middle stages of the original book, Slytherin was undoubtedly criticized more badly, mainly because the early villain Malfoy was in the college. When he was studying at Hogwarts, he spent most of his time on how to make Harry Potter more unlucky. The little followers Goyle and Crabbe were not good people. But in Joel's heart, this college also has its shining points: Snape's sudden awakening, Regulus Black's persistence in justice. At the end of the original book, these people from Slytherin used their actions to resist Voldemort's cruelty and tyranny. He heard Alan beside him with a nervous face, constantly muttering the spell of the levitation spell. This Iron Fool did not realize that he was deceived by the Weasley brothers. Alan, what are you mumbling? Marita was very confused. Well, Alan thought about the wording. We will fight a Welsh green dragon in the sorting ceremony later, so we have to prepare carefully. What spells do you know? Can you teach me? Marita was speechless, looking at Alan's sincere face. Qiu Zhang's eyes widened in disbelief, and his slightly chubby face looked a little cute. The sorting ceremony is not. Shh. Joel put his index finger on his lips. Qiu Zhang guessed his intention and smiled with curved eyebrows and lips. Joel couldn't help but take a closer look. This girl smiled so gently that even a few steps away, he felt like he was bathed in spring breeze. He somewhat understood why Harry was so obsessed with Qiu in the early days. After all, such gentle girls are rare in the West. Are we really going to fight a Welsh green dragon? A tall and thin girl asked with a puzzled look. Of course. Alan blushed, obviously not used to talking to the girl, and then he was eager to tell her the truth. He forced himself to suppress his panic and explained to her seriously. The Weasley brothers from Gryffindor told us that they are old students and have participated in the sorting ceremony. Okay. The girl became worried after listening to Alan's explanation. I'm Katie Bell, nice to meet you. Katie turned around and whispered to a few friends around her. They looked serious, obviously discussing how to deal with the cruel sorting ceremony. If I can't do anything, will they let me go back to my original school? A girl with a blonde ponytail was about to burst into tears. I don't want to go back. Woo woo woo. In the narrow and cramped room, the atmosphere suddenly became depressed. According to Joel's observation, several freshmen knew the truth about the sorting ceremony. They looked at those panicked classmates who were kept in the dark and showed disdain on their faces. They didn't speak the truth, as if they were watching a farce. Alan. Joel quietly walked to Alan's side, trying to lower his voice so that only the two of them could hear. We should not be afraid of any difficulties we encounter. Face it with a smile. The best way to eliminate fear is to face it, and persistence is victory. You are right. Alan was moved by Joel's words. The best way to eliminate fear is to face it. It is just a Welsh green dragon. The more we are afraid of it, the more arrogant it will be. Well, I will teach you a way. Joel coughed twice. If you are afraid in the future, just shout Ali Jerry. Ali Jerry? I have never heard of this word. What does it mean? Joel's face was natural. It is a magical oriental language. They will say this word when they pray for magical protection. He is now lying without thinking, and the passive skill of the game planner in his previous life is instantly on his body, and he speaks words that are not what he means. It turns out to be a magical oriental spell. That's not surprising. Alan felt it was natural. Although he read a lot of books when he was young, he didn't know much about the wizarding world in the East. He only knew that there were magic schools there, but he knew nothing about their spellcasting methods. Alija. Alan closed his eyes and said with his mouth wide open. He tried to lower his voice, but Qiu Zhang and Marita still heard it. What is he saying? Qiu was very puzzled, and his two dark eyebrows were tightly locked together. Qiu. Alija. Alan was serious. Qiu was confused. Joel, this spell really works. Alan was surprised. I feel the magic power in my body is boiling. He took out his wand, and the tip of the wand was emitting crackling red light. Joel didn't know whether to say a swear word in his heart. He made up such a sentence casually. Could it really work? Of course, no matter whether this religion is really useful or not, Joel would not be stupid enough to test it on the spot. What a joke. There are so many future classmates here, and he must not do such a thing as making a fool of himself. Alan, I think this spell should only be recited silently in my heart, and there is no need to shout it out in public, right? Of course, I'm just suggesting. Joel still wanted to persuade Alan. I think this spell will only work if you believe in it. Alan disagreed with Joel's opinion. You have to shout it out loud, and the louder the better. Otherwise how can you show your piety? Joel was dumbfounded, and he wanted to persuade him again, but Professor McGonagall pushed open the door and walked in. Line up and follow me. Joel and Alan joined the team, and they followed Professor McGonagall out of the room, through the foyer, and into the auditorium. Speak more, vote more, and you haven't signed the contract yet. You will make a lot of money from your investment. Chapter 6. Daily Life in the 1990 Class. The hall was decorated magnificently. Everywhere you looked, you could see glittering golden plates and goblets. There were also thousands of candles lighting up the hall. It was worth mentioning that the ceiling of the hall was twinkling with stars, and from time to time, two clouds would float by to hide the moon. Joel knew that the ceiling of the hall had been enchanted to make it look like the sky outside. 4 long tables of the colleges were neatly arranged. At the innermost side of the hall was a row of long tables arranged horizontally, on which sat a group of professors with different looks and clothes. Professor McGonagall led them to stand in a row in front of the teachers' seats, facing the hundreds of people from the 4 colleges in front. Joel stood beside Alan, and could clearly feel that his body was shaking constantly. Alan imagined what he should do when facing the Welsh green dragon. He could first shout out the phrase Ali Jerry that Joel taught him to boost morale, and then use the floating spell that he had just learned, which sometimes worked and sometimes didn't, to throw anything at the green dragon's head. Then he seemed to know nothing. He could imagine the dragon opening its bloody mouth and biting off his small head with a roar. How scary. Alan's face turned pale. Although the hall was warm, he still felt the cold penetrate his skin through his robes and freeze his blood into ice. At this time, Professor McGonagall gently placed a full-legged stool in front of the first-year students, and then placed a tattered and patched wizard hat on the stool. It was the Sorting Hat. Joel looked at the wizard hat twisting and turning on the stool very restlessly, and he felt a little nervous. His brain occlusion was only intermediate, and he didn't know if he could hide from the Sorting Hat's legilimency. He ignored the external noise and focused all his attention. He could even hear his heart beating wildly in his chest. After twisting a few times, the hat began to speak and sang the sorting song. I'm the magic hat used for Hogwarts tests, so naturally I'm superior to your hats. Any thoughts hidden in your mind cannot escape the magic hat's golden eyes. Try putting me on, and I will tell you which house you should be sorted into. The total number of words is too many. In order to prevent people from saying that I have added too many words, the author will not repeat the whole text. Alan covered his mouth and screamed. The sound was not loud, but Joel and Qiu beside him heard it. He looked at Joel with tears in his eyes. So the sorting ceremony is just putting on this magic hat? I think so. Joel shrugged his shoulders, and Qiu beside him covered his mouth and laughed. Qiu, what are you laughing at? Alan wiped his tears and sobbed. I remembered something happy. Qiu rolled his eyes and evaded. At this time, Professor McGonagall walked forward a few steps with a roll of parchment in her hand. Whoever I call out will sit on the stool, put on this hat, and wait for the sorting. Professor McGonagall said. Katie Bell, the tall and thin girl, ran over with her long legs and put the sorting hat on her head. The sorting hat twisted the girl's head twice and made a decision. Gryffindor. The sorting hat shouted loudly, and the girl quickly took off the sorting hat and returned it to Professor McGonagall and went to the Gryffindor table that cheered her. Alan Bott. The second name called was Alan's. Standing next to Joel, he shivered unnaturally, wiped his tears with his hands, and walked to Professor McGonagall. He slowly climbed onto the four-legged stool, then retracted his calves, and Professor McGonagall put the sorting hat on his head. His head was too small, and the hat covered his eyes, and it was pitch black in front of him. The sorting hat twisted restlessly on Alan's head. Okay, let's go. A minute later, the sorting hat finally made a decision. Ravenclaw. Applause broke out on the long sky blue table of Ravenclaw. Alan took off his hat and stumbled down, and was caught by a senior Ravenclaw student in time. Alan looked at the smiling faces of the Ravenclaw students, and the nervousness in his heart gradually eased. The chill that seeped into his blood was also dispelled by their smiles, and he smiled shyly. Qiu sang. When Qiu's name was called, she hurriedly stepped forward, sat down on the chair obediently, and let the sorting hat twist on her head. Ravenclaw. Merita Edgemore. Ravenclaw. There were a lot of Ravenclaws this year. Alan, Merita, Qiu. One by one, the freshmen were called out, and the freshmen around Joel decreased little by little, as if the hourglass used for countdown was about to run out, and he became more and more uneasy. At this time, he had a flash of inspiration in his mind, and came up with a great idea to avoid the sorting hat's legilimency. Cormac McLaggen, a fat boy with big arms and a big waist, nimbly jumped onto the four-legged stool. The sorting hat did not hesitate for long this time. Gryffindor. Joel Taylor. Professor McGonagall finally called his name. Joel took a deep breath and cleared his mind. When he really went on stage, he was not as nervous as when he was waiting. His years of experience in preparing for exams in his previous life made him able to withstand stress. He sat on the four-legged stool, closed his eyes slightly, and Professor McGonagall put the sorting hat on his head. He's so cute, he heard a senior Hufflepuff girl say in the audience. I want to give him a kiss on his pink face. Yeah, he'll be very handsome when he grows up, someone else echoed. He can even be an actor in a Muggle movie. That brown hair is so charming. What kind of nonsense are you imagining in your mind, little brat? Suddenly, an exasperated voice came from inside. It was the sorting hat. I've never seen such a shameless person. Joel's mouth corners slightly raised, knowing that his plan had succeeded. He opened his eyes. Where were the crazy senior girls in the audience? The hungry students all lowered their heads and looked at the empty plates in front of them. No one was paying attention to him, a little transparent person. After all, he was not the boy who lived Everything just now was a trick he imagined in his mind to stop the Sorting Hat from using legilimency. Joel made full use of the brain occlumency technique and made up a realistic lie, covering it above the deep memory for the Sorting Hat to check. The Sorting Hat twisted Joel's head restlessly. It did not penetrate Joel's memory. After all, in the Sorting Hat's understanding, it was impossible for an 11-year-old child to learn the brain block. Okay. The Sorting Hat was a little embarrassed. I have to admit that you are different in narcissism. You are also very smart. This college specializes in students like you, who are paranoid, weird, unique, and have great wisdom. Ravenclaw. The Sorting Hat shouted loudly. Applause broke out at the Ravenclaw table, and Joel walked down to sit with Alan and others. Shaking hands with the senior students who greeted him, Joel finally breathed a sigh of relief. Joel was a little complacent. He was really a genius. Li Yun Long Point JPG. QQ. Please hand in your recommendation votes. It's so hard for newcomers to get along at Gideon. Readers, please give some encouragement. Chapter 7. New Roommate. Hadil Selwyn. A black-haired girl walked forward with her head down. The Sorting Hat hesitated for a long time before sorting her into Ravenclaw. After the sorting ceremony, Professor McGonagall picked up the full-legged stool and the Sorting Hat and left the Great Hall. This year, Ravenclaw has a total of 12 new students, with more Hufflepuffs and fewer Gryffindors and Slytherins. Sitting at the long table, Joel discovered a detail that had been overlooked before in Ravenclaw College. The proportion of girls is extremely high. There are 4 boys and 8 girls among the 12 new students. There are only more than 20 boys on the long table, and the rest are all girls with long flowing hair. It is true that there are more girls than boys, but Joel still enjoyed it. How can the rough voice of a boy in the puberty period be as beautiful as a sweet voice of a girl? At this time, a man stood up from the teacher's seat. He was tall and thin, with flowing silver hair and long beard. His long hooked nose was twisted, as if it had been broken once, and his deep blue eyes hidden behind the half-moon glasses were bright and sharp. Dumbledore's appearance is really impressive. Joel looked around the hall and focused his eyes on the dark clouds on the ceiling. In the novel, the magic of the hall ceiling made him feel very surprised. Dumbledore stretched out his hands and smiled. It's a new school year again. We sent off a group of old students and welcomed a group of new students. I have a lot to say to you, but let the banquet begin first, and we will reminisce later. Everyone applauded vigorously. After working on the train for a day, they were already hungry. At this time, Dumbledore's words were absolutely in line with the people's wishes. Joel saw that the long table in front of him was filled with all kinds of food. Boiled potatoes, baked potatoes, fried potato chips, boiled chicken legs, roasted chicken legs, fried chicken legs. Joel felt his scalp tingling, but the feeling of hunger urged him to stuff food into his mouth. In the mouth of an old Chinese foodie like him, the food at Hogwarts is not delicious, but there is no problem in using it to fill the stomach. The house elves in the kitchen also treat the recipes with all their heart and soul. Alan was chewing slowly beside him, and Merita came closer again. Today's dinner is really good. Yeah, it's good. Joel felt that he was going to be embarrassed again. At this time, a boy sitting near him greeted him. Eddie Carmichael, nice to meet you. Joel was glad that he didn't have to listen to Alan and Merita's awkward chat, and turned to shake hands with the boy. Joel Taylor, hello. If nothing unexpected happened, the 4 boys who were newly sorted into Ravenclaw would become roommates, and Eddie's show of goodwill was also normal. Joel was still very good at communicating with people, and he was very skilled in using the interpersonal skills of his previous life. Within 5 minutes, he and Eddie had formed a temporary friendship. This is Alan Bott, and our new roommate. He introduced Eddie to Alan. Alan had been waiting for a long time. He didn't understand where Merita found so many topics, from the new policy of the newly appointed Minister Cornelius Fudge to the height gossip of their Dean Professor Flitwick. He was almost annoyed by Merita. Hello, Eddie, you are really nice. Alan smiled and quickly shook Eddie's outstretched right hand. Eddie had a black question mark face. He was quite envious of Alan. On the first day of coming to Hogwarts, a girl was chasing him relentlessly. Since he got on the train, there has only been a freak around him. But Alan didn't care about the mood of the Eddie. He pulled him to ask questions. Marita was not tactful, but she knew that she shouldn't disturb him and his future roommate at this time. Seeing Marita leave with a little disappointment, Alan breathed a sigh of relief and ate everything he saw on the table. Let me introduce you. This is Sergey Rao. Eddie took the two of them to a boy. His skin was pale and a little sick. Sergey glanced over the three of them, nodded slightly, and looked indifferent. His blonde hair was combed neatly and meticulously, his chin slightly raised, and his cold face made him look arrogant. Seeing that this new roommate did not intend to talk to them too much, the three returned to their original seats to enjoy dinner and chat. I'm half and half. Eddie took a bite of the lamb pie. My father is a wizard, and my mother is an ordinary person. I mean a muggle. She didn't know that my father was a wizard until I received the admission letter from Hogwarts. She originally wanted me to be a lawyer, but now it seems that this plan is going to fall through. I grew up in an orphanage. Seeing Eddie and Alan looking at him, Joel shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't know if my parents are wizards. Ah. There was a bit of sympathy in the eyes of the two. Don't look at me like that. Joel felt very uncomfortable. When his parents divorced and formed their own families in his previous life, his classmates and relatives looked at him like this. It was as if he couldn't live without his parents. In fact, he lived quite comfortably. He studied at the best university in the province and joined a large internet company. He had a good salary and lived freely without a girlfriend or a house. Tell me about you, Alan. What's your relationship with Bibi multi-flavor beans? Joel quickly changed the subject. Alan swallowed the chicken in his mouth. Birdie Bot, the founder of Bibi multi-flavor beans, is my grandfather. Wow. As expected, they are related. Bibi multi-flavor beans is a best-selling snack in the British wizarding world. The brand value is not cheap, and the gold galleons earned are undoubtedly a huge number. Who is that ghost lady? Eddie asked, picking up a fried chicken leg from the plate. Ms. Gray, she is our Ravenclaw ghost. Qiu Zhang explained to them. Each college has its own resident ghost. Slytherin is the Bloody Baron, Gryffindor is nearly Headless Nick, and Hufflepuff is the Fat Friar. Qiu, you know a lot. Alan said with a blushing face. It's nothing. It's all written in Hogwarts, a history of the school. Qiu smiled quietly. Joel saw Marita, who was sitting next to Qiu, rolled her eyes. But my grandfather never let me read this kind of book. Alan lowered his head and felt a little depressed. So what did you do as a child? Eddie wiped his greasy hands and grabbed the newly served pudding on the table. Learning to make potions, trying new flavors of multi-flavored beans, or learning how to make money. Alan sighed. Too boring. No one responded to Alan's words. The families of the freshmen present were not as rich as the Bot family. No one could put themselves in his shoes and understand his feelings. Please vote. Don't give me votes for reading books. Give me free things like recommendation votes. Woo woo woo. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8. First visit to Ravenclaw Tower. The moment the pudding and dessert disappeared, Dumbledore stood up from the teacher's seat. The restaurant returned to silence. First, I want to introduce a new defense against the dark arts professor, Professor Claire White. Dumbledore led the other professors in the teacher's seat to applaud and welcome. A slender woman with long wine red hair stood up and bowed slightly to the students in the audience. I think I'm in love with her. Eddie's eyes lit up, his face flushed, and his eyes stared at Professor White's beautiful face without blinking. Eddie, calm down. Joel laughed in his heart. Hogwarts' defense against the dark arts professor changes every year. You have to think it through. Qiu had a smile on his lips. It's okay, as long as Professor White is in Hogwarts, she will be my angel. Eddie has been obsessed with Professor White's face. Not only him, many male students in the audience also showed obsession. Professor White sat down, and Dumbledore continued in the teacher's seat. It's a commonplace. Students are not allowed to enter the Forbidden Forest. I emphasize this every time the school starts, but there are still many naughty students who refuse to change their ways. Dumbledore's eyes wandered around the Gryffindor table. In addition, the administrator Mr. Filch complained to me that many students still cast magic in the corridors. This is not allowed in Hogwarts. If you want to experiment with new spells you have learned, please go back to your common room. I hope you will have academic success and improvement in your grades in the new school year. For 5th and 7th year students, the OWL and NEWT exams are just around the corner. It's about your future, so I hope you will prepare well. Okay, before you go to bed, and sleep on time, and be good kids, let's sing a school song first. After talking about the serious topic of the wizard level test, Dumbledore's mood suddenly became high. He took out his wand, and flicked it lightly in the air. Golden ribbon sprayed out from the tip of the wand, bending and winding lines of text in the air. Everyone chooses a favorite tune. Dumbledore said, "Ready, sing." Joel sang along with everyone. To be honest, he liked this kind of free-flowing song. After all, he was prone to singing out of tune. The Weasley brothers were very good at making trouble. When the school song was halfway through, their voices suddenly became louder, leading the whole audience with the tune of the wedding march. Dumbledore did not stop them. A smile appeared on his face. He waved his wand like a conductor and directed the twins for a few bars. After singing the entire school song, Dumbledore clapped his hands vigorously and then wiped the moisture from the corners of his eyes. It's bedtime now. Everyone, hurry back to the common room. There is a warm fire waiting for you. Ravenclaw freshmen, follow me. A girl with long brown hair tied in a high ponytail stood up. Joel and the other 12 freshmen followed the girl out of the hall, out of the entrance hall, and around to the Ravenclaw Tower. I'm Catelyn La, the 5th year head girl of Ravenclaw. The female voice was clear and sonorous. Ravenclaw advocates wisdom and erudition. The representative animal is the eagle, but if Ravenclaw is split, it is a claw of the raven. Although the pattern on our school emblem is an eagle, if you think that the animal that better represents Ravenclaw College is a raven, we will respect your opinion. Catelyn led them to climb the spiral staircase of the Ravenclaw Tower. We are free-thinking and inclusive. Ravenclaw welcomes all reasonable opinions. In addition, to enter the Ravenclaw common room, you need to answer questions about the eagle-shaped door knocker. If you don't want to be locked out of the common room, you'd better use your brains more. Although their freshmen's legs are short, their steps are very fast, and they look silly when climbing the stairs. Everyone reached the 8th floor of the tower panting, and in front of them was a huge wooden door with a bronze eagle-shaped door knocker on it. Catelyn stepped forward and knocked on the door knocker. The eagle-shaped door knocker made a pleasant sound. What is the difference between ignorance and stupidity? Caitlin thought very quickly. Ignorance can be learned, but stupidity is hopeless. That's right. The door knocker hesitated for 2 seconds and agreed with Caitlin's answer. The wooden door made a sound of disengagement and a dull creaking sound. Caitlin reached out and pushed it, and the Ravenclaw common room appeared in front of them. This is a large round room. The white marble statue of the founder of the college, Ms. Ravenclaw, is in the niche opposite the entrance of the room. As soon as you enter the door, you can see this beautiful and intelligent woman smiling at you. The ceiling of the room is arched, with many stars painted on it with a blue base. There is also a huge crystal lamp suspended under the ceiling, which rotates quietly under the support of magic, providing light for the common room. The windows are also arched, with blue and bronze silk curtains hanging on them. There are many tables, chairs, and bookcases around the common room, and many students are sitting on chairs flipping through various books. This reminds Joel of the study rooms in his previous life, but the layout of the Ravenclaw common room is more luxurious and dreamy. There is one more thing for you. Catelyn went to the table in the middle of the lounge and picked up a stack of soft badges. This is the badge of Ravenclaw College. You put it on the standard robes. Don't sew it with needle and thread. Our headmaster Professor Flitwick will check it in a week, and if you perform well, you may get extra rewards. Catelyn distributed the badges to each freshman. Joel carefully looked through the palm-sized badge. It was a sky blue background with a black raven in the center, and its light yellow claws were grabbing the soil on the ground. There was also a golden ribbon under the badge, with Ravenclaw written in black font. You can look at my avatar. It's that one. The detail of wearing the college badge was not reflected in the original book and the movie. When sorting, They still wore a black robe without decorations, and when they went to class, the badges of various colleges appeared on their chests. So that's it. Joel's curiosity about the magical world grew stronger, and he was eager to find out the details that were hastily passed over or ignored in the original book. This makes this magical world seem more real. Other than that, there's nothing special to pay attention to. Caitlin thought for a while. Gather here at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. I have to take you around the castle, otherwise you will definitely get lost. The boys' dormitory is on the left, and the girls' dormitory is on the right. The luggage has been placed next to your beds. Caitlin said this quickly. Go to bed early tonight, otherwise you may not be able to concentrate on class tomorrow. Joel and the other 4 boys climbed the stairs on the left side of the common room, where there was a long row of rooms. The second room on the left was written Ravenclaw first year, Alan Bott, Eddie Carmichael, Sergei Rowe, Joel Taylor. Asking for recommendation votes, investment, and collection. I'm here today. I'll change the status of my work around next Monday. There are not many people investing now. The first signed achievement can earn a lot of Kidian coins. Chapter 9, I can't possibly. The room was not locked. After turning the doorknob half a turn, the door was easily opened. 3 people followed behind him and entered. Wow! Eddie exclaimed. The ceiling here is similar to the common room, also a dome design, with a few stars scattered on it. Turning on the switch next to the door, the crystal lamp under the ceiling began to rotate, providing them with lighting. The room is spacious, with 4 beds. Bedding and pillows are available, and the sky blue bed curtains are eye-catching. There is also a wardrobe, a desk, and a chair next to the bed. The main color of the whole room is blue-black, giving people a cold feeling. Seeing the blue everywhere will make your mind clearer. Joel found his name on the side of a bed. He put the suitcase that he left on the Hogwarts train in the wardrobe. Joel took out the clothes and the luggage, underwear, shirts, trousers, robes, ties. Each type is placed in the wardrobe in different categories. Then he took out the textbooks and neatly stacked them on a wooden bookshelf above the desk. The original owner of the body also bought a lot of cheap and low quality parchment, ink, and quill pens at the Diagon Alley stationery store. He sorted these stationery and put them on the desk. He had been used to living alone since high school, and he could always keep his house in order. This was like a daily routine for Joel. His movements were quick and methodical. He could feel the envious eyes of Alan and Eddie. However, the 2 of them soon associated it with Joel's miserable life in the orphanage before, and their envious eyes instantly became more compassionate. I guess Joel's life in the orphanage was not satisfactory, the 2 thought. If you still want to pack up, I'll use the bathroom first. Sergei, who had been silent before, put the suitcase under the bed. Joel was sharp-eyed and saw a ruby on the suitcase. No one answered. Sergei packed his toiletries and went into the bathroom. The click of the door lock sounded, and only the 3 of them were left in the room. Alan, who was very silly, breathed a sigh of relief. He felt that Sergei was out of tune with them. I was in the same compartment with him when I came here. This guy never said a word. He really looked down on people. Eddie was very dissatisfied. He took out all the clothes in his suitcase and stuffed them into the closet. He looked so sullen, as if I owed him a lot of money. Did we do something to displease him? Alan asked with a frown. He is just that kind of person. Eddie was obviously quite dissatisfied with Sergei and spoke a lot louder. Joel knelt on one knee on the bed, shook the quilt and pillow, and then tucked the sheets in, feeling a little helpless. He could see that Sergei seemed to have some problems with his personality. Joel missed his college dormitory at this time. Although their personal preferences and views were different, they got along very harmoniously. After graduation, they worked in similar places and often got together. Joel, who had experienced collective life, understood that dormitory unity was very important, but he didn't want to care about Sergei now. Joel, who had just obtained the system, was still immersed in the dual shock brought by the system and the magical world. After making his bed, he sat on a chair in a daze. The crystal chandelier in the dormitory room was quite similar to the one in the common room, but it was much smaller. The light made Joel a little dazed, and everything seemed so dreamy and unreal. Sergei had finished washing up at this time, opened the bathroom door, and walked under his bed. took out a spell book from the suitcase, and leaned on the head of the bed to read it quickly. He flipped through the book much faster than ordinary people, like the quantum wave speed reading method that Joel had read in his previous life. Can he read the book like this? Joel muttered in his heart, but to be honest, he was also like this when he read many water articles on kiddie and Chinese website in his previous life, and he read 10 lines at a glance and felt like chewing wax. His head was a little dizzy at this time, and sleepiness drove him to rush into the bathroom before Alan. While taking a shower, he opened the system panel, and a prompt popped up. Novice mission completed. Completion. Excellent reward. Lucky wheel 2 times. Floating spell progress in charms. Elementary. Plus 50% store redemption has been open. Hope the host will keep up the good work. Lucky wheel again. Seeing this message, Joel was no longer sleepy. He quickly washed up, put on his pajamas, and lay down on the bed, turning his back to find a posture based on a sense of security. Eddie rushed into the bathroom, and Alan wanted to cry, but had no tears. Joel called out the system panel and turned on the lucky wheel. The wheel was still black, white, blue, purple, and orange. Unlike the first time the wheel was turned on, the area ratio of each color was also written below the wheel this time. Black, junk. 35% white, common. 25% blue, rare. 20% purple, epic. 18% orange, legend. 2%. The reward includes permanent items and time-limited items. Joel turned the wheel with great anticipation. 5 colors mixed together. Joel was dazzled. Every time the turntable turned, his heart felt like he was on a roller coaster. Just don't let it be black. Joel closed his eyes. Amitabha, God bless, thank and praise the Lord, Merlin. He finished chanting in his heart, praying for the blessings of all kinds of gods, and then quietly opened one eye. The pointer fell on a piece of ink black, painting a shadow on his heart. The system popped up a message. Congratulations on winning the black area prize, and now the prize is opened for you. You opened a black garbage gift box and got a note saying thank you for participating. I hope you will have better luck next time. The lucky gift box will continuously draw black items 1/10, and there will be a surprise reward after completion. The information passed through Joel's eyes again and hit his heart. Looking at the black on the lucky turntable, Joel sighed helplessly. But with a 35% chance, it is reasonable to draw a black gift box once. Joel comforted himself like this. Lucky turntable. The 5 color light mixed together again, and Joel sat up cross-legged, silently chanting in his heart. The Pipi Shrimp Krypton Gold system is the most useful in the universe. Don't be black. Don't be black. The lucky wheel slowly stopped, and what came into view was the sky blue color like the dormitory common room. Oh, Joel cheered in his heart. This touch of blue is the proof of being out of the ordinary. He is definitely a human with normal luck, and the black gift box just now is just a coincidence. You opened a blue rare gift box and got the primary herb identification. Looking at the grey book in the inventory, Joel clicked it with his mind, and the grey light burst out. A lot of knowledge about how to identify herbs poured into his mind. This is a primary basic ability in the system herbal medicine. Comfortable. Joel fell on the bed and covered himself with the quilt. Can I turn off the light? Alan was the last one to finish washing up. He walked out of the bathroom and found that Joel and Eddie were already lying on the bed with their eyes closed, while Sergey was still lying on the bed and flipping through the book quickly. After flipping through it once, he started over again, but still couldn't figure out what Sergey was doing. Alan felt very sleepy and wanted to sleep, but how could he sleep with the crystal chandelier dazzling his eyes? Sergey didn't say anything. He put his spellbook away, leaned over, and pulled the quilt over his face. Alan breathed a sigh of relief and pressed the button next to the door. Click. The crystal chandelier stopped turning, the light went out, and the dormitory was dark. Joel was driven by sleepiness, yawned, and fell asleep in a moment. Chapter 10. Here comes the question. How to make money? Joel woke up after sleeping until 6 in the morning. The curtains were all drawn tightly, the room was dark, and the 3 roommates were still asleep. Joel tiptoed out of bed, went to the bathroom to take care of his physiological problems, brushed his teeth, and washed his face. When he returned to the room, it was already 6:30. Seeing that his roommates had no intention of getting up, he did not wake them up. He took out a book, Beginner's Transfiguration Guide, from the bookshelf and leaned on the head of the bed to read it. Without light, Joel had a hard time reading the book. After a while, he felt his eyes were dry, so he simply gave up and leaned on the bed to play with his wand. Joel waved his wand twice and sporadic sparks came out. Just like the first time he cast a spell, there was always a sense of blockage, which made him feel that he could not fully exert his magic level. He thought about it and called out the system panel. There was a mall at the bottom right of the system panel. When he clicked it, it was full of dazzling goods, and the goods were shining with dazzling golden light, just like those treasure chests in low-quality web games. The first item on the first row is the lucky wheel that Joel is familiar with. It is marked with 10 points per time, and there is a reminder next to it that the wheel contains all the goods in the mall. The lucky wheel is too gambling. If it is not a system reward, Joel will never take the initiative to redeem it in this life. There are other items below: top dragon leather gloves, polyjuice potion, and felicity potion. Joel was envious. But there is a red attribute under the items, not tradable, gift. In other words, all the goods sold by the system can only be used on Joel alone. At the bottom of the mall panel, Joel found what he wanted. A bright red heart is beating non-stop, full of vitality and energy, and the heartbeat frequency is strangely consistent with the heart in Joel's body. The origin of magic. It can activate the magic factor in the human body, allowing ordinary muggles to enjoy the pleasure brought by magic. Note, the origin of magic will allow the user to obtain, refresh, magic qualifications, but the strength of magic talent will be randomly determined. Price: 1000 points. 1000 points, that is, 1000 gold galleons. Joel only has 7 galleons, 7 sickles, and 7 nuts, which is a long way from this number. The source of magic in the inventory is a time-limited item after all, and it is impossible to keep it for a long time. Of course, he can also choose to draw a lucky wheel and rely on his luck. But Joel has a full understanding of his luck. It is impossible for him to spend 10 galleons to draw a prize. From the perspective of probability, the probability of drawing the source of magic is extremely low. He can only enjoy the excitement now. The source of magic is the key to his becoming stronger in the magic world, and he must get it. But thinking about it, Joel looked embarrassed. It is true that he is a time traveler, and his mind is also filled with a lot of information that can make a fortune in the muggle world. But he is a minor and has no parents. These two are enough to block most of his ways to make money in the muggle world. What's more, he is now a student at a magic school, which is very far away from the muggle world, and it is not suitable to develop his business there in a short time. Joel was worrying about how to make money quickly. Alan got up from the bed, rubbed his eyes and shook his head. "Joel, what time is it now?" he asked softly. 6:50. Alan was surprised at first, and then a little flustered. He hurriedly put on the standard robe on his head. After putting it on, it was a little uncomfortable. Then he realized that he had put the robe on the wrong way. This movement also woke up Eddie and Sergei. The three of them hurriedly put on the robe and took the textbooks. They ran out with Joel without brushing their teeth or washing their faces. The corridor of the boys' dormitory area was quiet. The four people rushed out of the dormitory area and saw that the prefect Caitlin and 8 female freshmen were already queuing at the door of the common room. Caitlin's eyes swept over the few people. "This is our map of Hogwarts Castle. The class location is described in detail, but the moving staircase is not drawn. This is why I'm taking you to familiarize yourself with the castle." She led the 12 freshmen out of the common room and went downstairs along the spiral staircase. The fresh air hit their noses, and Joel's mood was lifted. "Joel, if you get up early next time, can you wake me up?" Eddie came up and said. He straightened his tie and then rubbed the dirt from the corners of his eyes. And me. Alan was a little embarrassed. "I used to have elves wake me up at home, but I'm not used to it at Hogwarts." "Okay, no problem." Joel always felt something was wrong after hearing Alan's words, but seeing Alan's silly look, he sighed and agreed. Sergei got up late this morning and didn't have time to comb his hair. His blonde hair was a little messy and stuck to his ears. There were few people in the hall. I think everyone was a little tired after the long journey yesterday and wanted to sleep a little longer. The freshmen and 5th year prefects of Slytherin College were already sitting at the long table and eating breakfast quietly. The long tables of Gryffindor and Hufflepuff were empty. Caitlin took them to sit at their own college's long table. Joel had just sat down when several plates of hot food appeared on the empty table. Eddie started eating right away. Joel glanced at the baked beans on the plate in front of him, then took the fried eggs, sausages, and bread. Fortunately, the food tasted pretty good. Joel tried to adapt himself to the local British dishes, but he still missed fried dough sticks and soy milk. He didn't want to care about sweetness or saltiness now, as long as he had that nostalgic taste. After breakfast, Caitlin took them to stroll back and forth in the main building of the castle, mainly to remember some funny and tricky stairs. The 5th step of the north staircase from the 3rd floor to the 4th floor must be jumped over, otherwise the stairs will automatically disappear. The east staircase from the 5th floor to the 6th floor will move to the west every Friday. Joel muttered to himself as he looked at the handwriting on the back of the castle map. These were the points that Caitlin emphasized when she took them around the castle just now. There are 142 stairs in Hogwarts. Fortunately, most of them are just weird in shape and size, and only a few stairs move and disappear automatically. Joel followed the Ravenclaw freshmen from the 8th floor of the castle back to the 4th floor. Their first class today was Charms, taught by their dean, Professor Flitwick. At 7:50, they arrived at the classroom. The Hufflepuff students were already seated, but Professor Flitwick had not yet arrived. Joel had a good impression of Hufflepuff as soon as he entered the door. There was no fixed seating arrangement in the Charms classroom. Based on the principle of first come first served, the Hufflepuff students could have occupied all the front seats, but they were very considerate and sat on the left half of the classroom, leaving all the seats on the right for Ravenclaw. 12 Ravenclaw students sat quietly on the right half of the classroom, taking their textbooks and stationery out of their bags. Professor Flitwick entered the classroom as the bell rang. He was short and sturdy, about a little shorter than Joel, with a long and pointed nose and ears, looking like a goblin. Please recommend and collect. The contract has been sent out. It is expected to change the status on Monday and Tuesday. If you want to invest and earn Gideon coins, hurry up. Chapter 11. Professor Flitwick's Generous Reward. This is your first class at Hogwarts. I'm Phileas Flitwick, head of Ravenclaw and Professor of Charms. Professor Flitwick jumped onto the desk so that the whole class could see him. I know that some of you have never been exposed to magic before. It doesn't matter. Your magic power is not yet mature. The lead of some children is not enough to prove anything. Follow the pace of my class. You will learn a lot of profound knowledge and have a clearer understanding of the magical world. In the first class, Professor Flitwick did not teach spells, but just asked them to wave their wands over and over again. According to him, the element of casting spells are correct chanting, accurate wand swinging movements and concentration. To become an excellent spell user, these 3 basic skills must be firmly established. The bell rang, and Flitwick finally stopped them. Joel shook his arms to stretch his sore muscles. He left the 12 new students of Ravenclaw behind, and the little badgers of Hufflepuff left the classroom chirping. They couldn't wait to go back to the warm common room to catch up on their sleep. Professor Flitwick left the podium and closed the door of the Charms classroom. The Gryffindor students had just finished a defense against the Dark Arts class. They were full of energy and were playing noisily in the corridor. The sound was immediately blocked out after the door was closed. Students, he said with a smile, did Catelyn tell you last night that she wanted to embed the Ravenclaw emblem on the standard robes? The freshmen in the audience nodded. I said that students who can complete this task within a week can get a small reward. Professor Flitwick took out 7 volumes of books from the small bag he carried with him. Several freshmen widened their eyes. The small bag seemed extremely small in Professor Flitwick's hand, but he could pull out 7 thick volumes from it. But Joel knew the secret, the traceless extension spell. Hermione also had a beaded bag that cast the traceless extension spell in the original book, which had many magical uses. Chadwick's Magic. This is a spell textbook for our Vermorny School in North America, a total of 7 volumes. Professor Flitwick shook the book in his hand. Every student who completes the task can get a set from me. The author is Chadwick Boot. He is also the founder of Ilvermorny School, and his signature is on the title page of each volume. The faces of the freshmen in the audience showed eagerness. The desire for unknown knowledge of Ravenclaws is deeply ingrained in their bones. In other words, it is because of their vigorous desire for knowledge that they were assigned to Ravenclaw College. Joel looked at the thick book in Professor Flitwick's hand, and his desire grew stronger. This thing should be worth a lot of money, right? But can the money from selling it be recharged into the system? He still remembered that the system had said before, gifts that the system does not recognize, and unfair transactions are not recognized. The system judges that the task reward is not a gift. This task is difficult, and the reward is within the matching range. The system prompt appeared again, which made Joel even more excited. Professor Flitwick saw the reaction of the students, and nodded with satisfaction. You need to use the sticking charm. The spell is on page 79 of the standard book of spells, level 1. The wand swinging action and the chanting of the spell are all written on it. Professor Flitwick put the book back. Go back and practice more. The course ended here. On the first day of school, Ravenclaw College only had one spells class. Professor Flitwick did not assign any other homework. Many freshmen planned to go back to the dormitory to catch up on sleep. Joel also returned to the dormitory, leaned on the head of the bed, called out the system panel, and clicked on the charms column. The scene was completely different from the previous transfiguration. The progress bar of transfiguration is divided according to magical abilities, such as animagus, summoning and vanishing, but the progress bar of charms is densely packed, ranging from levitation to confusion. The progress bar varies greatly depending on the type of spell. After a lot of effort, he finally found the spell paste spell. The progress bar reads 0/10, which means that it takes 10 gold galleons to learn this spell. Joel focused his eyes on the description of the paste spell. This spell is cast actively and requires magic power. It can fix one object on another object. Special note, the spell progress bar simply represents the mastery of the spell. The power of the spell is also closely related to the strength of magic power and the degree of magic control. This is easy to understand. If you want to cast a qualified spell, you must have basic magic power. Otherwise, no matter how proficient you are in spells, it will be useless. Imagine if the people in Jin Young's novels learned the 18 dragon subduing palms, but their internal strength was meager. The effect of using such a powerful move would be greatly reduced. Joel clicked on the progress bar of the paste spell to try to learn it. There were points in his system, but the progress bar did not move at all. Instead, a line of system prompts appeared. Want to learn powerful spells? You need to have a certain understanding of how spells work. Before learning spells in the system, please fill up the progress bar of spell theory, elementary. Note, spell theory, elementary, only works on this system. If the host does not use the power of the system to learn spells, there is no need to fill up the progress bar. Not to abuse the host, not to abuse the host. It's all paving the way for the plot later. Keep reading. Joel saw the spell theory at the top of the spell learning column, and the progress bar above it was 0/50. Is this system a scam? Joel was so angry that he couldn't help but kicked the quilt hard. Eddie was lying on the bed and sleeping soundly. Sergey didn't go back to the dormitory with them, and the bed was empty. Alan was looking at the usage of the sticking spell. Joel, what's wrong with you? Alan heard a dull sound and looked up at Joel. Joel was sulking, waving his hand and ignoring Alan, and he wrapped himself in the quilt and lay down. But he didn't stay depressed for too long. Joel realized that he was too obsessed with Professor Flitwick's reward and too dependent on the system to get something for nothing. This kind of thinking will cause big problems in the future. What if the system suddenly disappears one day? Joel made up his mind and felt that he had to rely on himself for everything. In a week, he would read more textbooks and leave everything to fate. It would be best if he could get the reward, but there was no need to belittle himself if he couldn't. Joel, have you heard about it? At noon in the auditorium, Eddie suddenly jumped over, holding a plate of fried chicken legs in his hand, one in his mouth, and speaking unclearly. What did you hear about it? Joel looked at him sitting next to him, and put down a plate of fried chicken legs. Where did you get the chicken legs? He didn't notice this dish on the long table when he was sitting here just now. The Hufflepuff table. Eddie took out the chicken bones. The crispy chicken legs were crispy and tender, which made people quite hungry. To be honest, the food in their college is really delicious. I have gone off topic. I want to tell you. Professor Flitwick's reward is worth 200 gold galleons. Eddie's eyes flashed when he said this. Penelope Clearwater, a senior in the 4th year, told me that she got this reward. Please vote for recommendation. It is updated every day. If you think the book is worth reading, can you give some reward? It is very important for new books. Chapter 12. Don't play chess if you don't know how to play. Worth so much money? Qiu Zhang also heard Eddie's words and turned his head to ask, how much is Professor Flitwick's monthly salary? Would he take out so much money as a reward? These are all given by his friends. They didn't cost money in the first place. Eddie became more and more excited as he spoke, not to mention that there are not many people who can get rewards from Professor Flitwick. Senior Penelope said that she has been in Hogwarts for so long, and only 2 people in Ravenclaw have succeeded. 200 galleons? Marita suddenly interrupted. It's not worth a lot of money, right, Alan? Alan, who was originally sitting next to him eating and watching the show, felt his scalp tingling. Everyone's eyes were cast over, which put a lot of pressure on him, who was determined to be a little transparent. He was stunned for a few seconds, and his eyes swept over Joel, Eddie, Qiu and Marita. Then he lowered his head and whispered softly, I think it's still worth a lot. Marita's face was really sour, and Sergei happened to walk over with a pile of books. He obviously heard what Marita had just said, and couldn't help but snorted. That's outrageous. Although the voice was low, Joel and the others heard it clearly. What did you say? Marita turned around and glared at Sergei with a fierce expression. Sergei still had that expressionless look. He put the book next to Alan and then started to sneer. Your parents, who work as employees in the Magical Transportation Department's Fly Network Administration, only earn 100 galleons a month. In order to satisfy their pitiful vanity, they have to shamelessly say that 200 gold galleons are not a lot of money. It was the first time that Joel heard Sergei say so much. You. Marita blushed and couldn't speak for a long time. Joel had seen through Marita's thoughts before, but he never exposed her. Unexpectedly, Sergei said it directly. Marita was too ashamed to stay here any longer. Sergei was right. Her parents were just ordinary employees of the Ministry of Magic. Employees in the Ministry of Magic were divided into different levels. The Flu Network Administration was undoubtedly the lowest level. They could not make much money every month, and could only rely on a fixed salary to survive. The salary of a Ministry of Magic employee was 50 galleons, and the couple made just 100 galleons a month. Her childhood life was not very comfortable. Her parents and colleagues in the Ministry of Magic bought a house in Yorkshire. The food, clothing and daily expenses of her classmates were much better than hers. Marita gradually developed a value of despising the poor and loving the rich. Her behavior when she first met Joel and Alan was also a choice from the heart. Marita dropped the plate and ran out of the hall with her head down. Her golden curly hair was slightly red in the midday sun. Qiu looked at Marita's back as she left, and her chubby face with a little baby fat swelled up. I have to go see her. She got up in a hurry, glanced at Sergei and ran out. Eddie whistled. Cool, Sergei. His impression of Sergei rose sharply. He had just disliked Marita. Sergei snorted coldly and took a plate of fish and chips from the table. Did you say something too harsh? Alan looked at the exit of the auditorium with some concern. What's so harsh? Eddie said, I think you are also annoyed by her. If you don't teach her a lesson soon, she will definitely stick to you. Do you want her to come over to you every time you eat? Not only during meals, but also during class. Joel added. Alan shook his head like a rattle. Girls would be shy around him, let alone chatting with them. Sergei's sharp words still worked. At least they stayed in the common room for an afternoon, and Marita didn't look for Alan. Do you want to play wizard chess? Alan asked Joel, who was curled up on the sofa reading a book. Don't you have Eddie with you? I can't beat him. Alan is too strong. Eddie said sullenly. Joel climbed up from the sofa. They were in the central area of the common room, with tables and bookshelves on the edge. Many students were reading quietly there, and a group of senior students were fiercely debating whether there is a moral bottom line for human deformation. He replaced Eddie's position and played against Alan. Wizard chess and international chess are no different in rules, but the chess pieces of wizard chess are alive, giving people a more real feeling, like commanding an army to fight. Joel didn't have much contact with international chess in his previous life, and he was defeated by Alan in a short while. He manipulated the chess pieces and made a wrong move. The knight chess piece jumped up and hit Joel's knee. Don't play chess if you don't know how to play chess. If you learn to play chess from others, you will play chess wrong. The knight shouted loudly. Joel was beaten and lost his temper. He was indeed not good at it and was inferior to others. Alan looked at the chessboard with boredom. He hadn't lost in the whole afternoon. Wizard chess was one of the few fun things he had as a child. His grandfather allowed him to play wizard chess in his spare time when he was studying potions and management. The reason was simple: playing chess can make the brain active. Joel was a little unhappy. He rolled his eyes and a bold idea popped up in his mind. Have you played poker? He asked Alan. What? Alan was confused. He had never heard of the word poker. It's a kind of playing card in the Muggle world, which is popular all over the world. I know a way to play it, so the three of us can participate, Joel said. Wizard chess is not suitable for the three of us. If the two of us play wizard chess, Eddie has to watch on the side and can't speak. It's very uncomfortable, isn't it? Joel winked. Eddie has lived in the Muggle world for quite a long time and is very familiar with poker. He still remembers the time when he was beaten up for playing wizard chess before, so of course he agreed with Joel at this time. That's right, I can't give orders, even if I watch the game, but I'm dying of suffocation. Eddie covered his chest and made a painful expression. This expression deceived the naive Alan, and he readily agreed to Joel's proposal. But did you bring this kind of playing cards? Of course not. Who would have nothing to do but bring a deck of playing cards to magic school? But we can make it ourselves. It's very simple. Joel came up with an idea. It's easy to say, but it's hard to do. Joel and Eddie soon found that the playing card suits were very difficult to make. The three of them even used magic wands and didn't even have dinner. They worked for 5 hours and finished the production when Sergey rushed back to the dormitory at 8 o'clock when the library closed. What are you doing? Sergey's cold face had a few cracks. The originally clean floor of the dormitory was covered with scraps of paper, and his 3 stupid roommates were lying on Eddie's bed and yelling excitedly. Plain King Bomb. At this moment, Sergey doubted his life. Chapter 13. I have a plan to make money. It's a fun card game. Sergey, come and play too. Eddie turned around and called out, and naturally threw his losing hand into the deck. Eddie, you're cheating. Alan blushed. Oh, I just threw it away by accident, Eddie said innocently. Sergey frowned and took out his wand, gently waving it in the air. All the scraps of paper on the floor flew up, condensed into a large paper ball in the air, and fell steadily into the trash can behind the door. Wow. Alan, who was very stupid, exclaimed, and in a blink of an eye, he forgot about Eddie's rogue behavior. Joel was amazed at Sergey's control of magic. Are you sure this is the magic level of a freshman who has just been enrolled for 2 days? Think about it, they spent 5 hours to make a deck of playing cards. Comparing people makes people angry. Sergey put away his wand, looked at the playing cards in front of Joel and the other two, hesitated for a while and asked, what is this? He really couldn't stop his strong curiosity. Joel felt that he had a good opportunity to mend the relationship between his roommates. Let me explain to you. These cards are called poker, and there are 54 cards in total. Then he introduced the poker game that the three of them had played before to Sergey. Fighting the landlord? Sergey was confused. Why do we have to fight the landlord? Because the other two are the emerging bourgeoisie. The landlord represents the old feudal landlord class, and they rely on land as their only support. This mode of production is seriously backward compared to capitalist production, and we must fight against these backward forces. Joel had already thought of the reason during the 5 hours of making poker cards. Sounds reasonable, right? Alan said excitedly. Eddie also said that Joel is right. Eddie grew up in the Muggle world and knew more or less about the history of Britain before. He nodded and said, yes, this kind of contradiction existed in British society before the glorious revolution of 1688. Can you play a game first? I want to watch from the side. No problem. Alan was delighted. He also wanted to have a good relationship with Sergei, otherwise he would have to be nervous and careful when he returned to the dormitory. Joel and the other two started a new game of cards. D. Joel hummed a little tune about landlords, his mind wandering elsewhere. Not only Eddie, but even Alan, who grew up in the wizarding world, was attracted by the landlord's model, which was enough to prove the lack of entertainment in the wizarding world. Who would have thought that a sport like Quidditch could be so popular in the wizarding world? He felt that he had discovered a huge gold mine, waiting for him to mine it. While he was distracted, Alan, as the landlord, had already played all the cards and spread his palms proudly. Eddie threw the cards with a look of annoyance. I should have known not to use bombs. Sergei was eager to try, and just as Joel didn't want to play anymore, he simply asked him to take his place, and he ran to the bed to think about things. A plan to make money was taking shape in his mind. After losing 2 games, Sergei gradually figured out the tricks of doubters who. His brain has superb calculation ability, and he can calculate cards accurately and quickly. Alan is proficient in wizard chess, and is also good at calculation, so he can barely compete with Sergei. Eddie is in a miserable situation. He is not stupid, but Sergei is born with a good brain. Alan has been practicing since he was a child, and has become proficient in this aspect. After a few games, he is a little overwhelmed. Fortunately, doubters who is different from wizard chess. Even if the calculation ability is slightly poor, you can win 2 games with good cards drawn by luck. The 3 of them are addicted to playing cards. They didn't finish the game until 11 o'clock in the evening to go to bed. This caused Eddie and the other 2 to feel dizzy and lose their energy in the transfiguration class the next morning. But there was good news. The dormitory relationship finally returned to normal. Although Sergei still had a cold face, at least he would answer questions well, which was a big improvement. Mr. O, Mr. Bot, Mr. Carmichael. Professor McGonagall looked at the 3 sleepy freshmen in the front row. Her thin lips pursed into a slit. Alan and Eddie stood up immediately, sleepy-eyed. Sergei didn't respond, and Joel poked him twice with his elbow before he woke up and stood up. I remember that freshman only had 1 class yesterday, Professor McGonagall said with sharp eyes. It seems that you stayed up late to play last night. This class was combined with Slytherin College. They each did their own things. Even if Alan and the other 2 were criticized by Professor McGonagall, they remained indifferent, as if there was an invisible gully blocking the 2 colleges. Mr. O, our task this month is to turn matches into silver needles. Professor McGonagall waved the wand in her hand and distributed a row of matches to everyone's desks. If any of you can complete the task in this class, I can erase the 15 points that I plan to deduct from Ravenclaw. 15 points. This is not a small number for first year students. They can only get 2 or 3 points from the professor for answering a question correctly in class. They have just entered Hogwarts and are very sensitive to scores. Alan is very worried. If he loses points, will he be blamed by Catelyn and Dean Flitwick? Thinking of this, Alan's face turned pale, his lips kept trembling, and his mind was blank. Professor McGonagall was walking around in the classroom, supervising the students' transfiguration. Remember, you must concentrate. She saw a Slytherin student waving his wand absent-mindedly, turning the match on the table into 4 short legs, and immediately emphasized, transfiguration is very dangerous, very dangerous. I don't want any student to get hurt in my class because of careless operation. If you are not paying attention, then I can only ask him to leave the class. Joel waved his wand with full concentration. In his opinion, the match did not change much, but just became slightly flatter and sharper. He felt that it would be better if he punched the match to flatten it. But Joel did not give up. He repeated the action over and over again, chanting the spell and swinging the wand correctly, and he worked very hard. Transfiguration, in his opinion, was similar to the plasticine he often played with when he was a child. He needed to use magic to mold the deformed object into the desired shape, but the internal structure did not change. It was extremely brain-consuming and magical. As Professor McGonagall said, it was a very dangerous subject. After trying several times, Eddie gave up the idea of trying hard and simply began to distract himself to rest his spirit. Alan tried twice and there was no effect at all. He became more and more panicked, and sparks flew from the wand in his hand when he was distracted. The sparks almost caught fire on the wooden table, which scared several people. Sergey did not move. Seeing Alan's hard work, his eyes were gloomy and unclear. Do you care so much about the college score? Please recommend. Chapter 14. Who is the protagonist? If we lose points, Prefect Catalin will definitely blame us. Alan frowned, staring at the matches on the table, waving his wand non-stop. Change it please. Sergey's eyes condensed and suddenly pressed Alan's wand. The sparks from the wand hit the marble floor and reflected on the podium. After several energy reductions, it still burned a hole 1 inch thick on the podium. Huh. Alan was startled. If Sergey hadn't taken action just now, the sparks would have ignited the desk and things would not be as simple as they are now. Mr. Bot, I emphasized before. Professor McGonagall's voice suddenly appeared behind the two of them. Professor McGonagall, I didn't do a good job. Alan quickly apologized, then glanced at Professor McGonagall's face and was relieved to see that she was not angry. Pay attention next time. Mr. Rao did a good job. Professor McGonagall tapped the podium with her wand, and the small hole was quickly filled. Professor McGonagall, I think I can transform the matches. Sergey volunteered at this time. Oh. Professor McGonagall raised her eyebrows. The task she assigned was very difficult. Many young wizards who had learned simple magic before entering school could not do it. Sergey concentrated all his mind on the tip of his wand. He manipulated the wand to make a right pointing motion and chanted the transformation spell. Waby waby. The match turned into a silver needle. The tip of the needle was still slightly cold, which made people sweat. It was obviously very sharp. Professor McGonagall was a little surprised. She glanced at the silver needle and then looked up and down at Sergey. Very good. Professor McGonagall praised. From the time she taught until now, she remembered that only James Potter and Barty Crouch Jr. completed this task in the first class. You successfully made up for the 15 points lost by Ravenclaw, Mr. Rao. Professor McGonagall's pursed lips rose slightly. After Professor McGonagall left, Alan showed gratitude, and Eddie looked at Sergey with a bit of disbelief. The other Ravenclaw students sitting behind Joel and the other four were dumbfounded. The matches in their hands didn't even turn into a needle tip. Joel was dumbfounded. Sergey had just been in a daze for half a class, and he just looked at the blackboard and succeeded after trying it once. You are the protagonist, right? Joel's eyes were suspicious. He felt that Sergey also had a system of academic tyrants. Sergey lowered his eyes, crossed his arms and said nothing. Fell asleep? Eddie muttered in a low voice. Alan leaned over to see. Yes, he fell asleep. He nodded. Joel tapped the matches with his wand from time to time, like a little monk striking a bell, but the little monk looked a little more handsome. After the transfiguration class, their morning classes were over. The afternoon herbology class would start at 4 o'clock, and they had enough time to rest. Sergey didn't go to the library today. He and Eddie Allen returned to the dormitory and fell asleep. They played too late yesterday, and slept restlessly, which really hurt their bodies. Joel leaned on the bed and flipped through the textbooks. He planned to finish reading the textbooks of various subjects first, and then go to the library when he saw something he didn't understand. In his opinion, as textbooks, they must have their importance, and it is not an exaggeration to say that they are the foundation of various subjects. In his previous life, he maintained the concept of thoroughly understanding textbooks, which made him like a duck in water in high school and university. With his mature knowledge and understanding, the concepts in these textbooks are not difficult to understand, but rather quite easy to remember. For example, for the levitation spell, Joel linked the spell Wingardium Leviosa with the action of swinging the wand wave and shake. The tone transitions of chanting the spell are surprisingly similar to the wand swinging action. When the tone is low, the magic wand is also swung downwards, and when the tone is high, the magic wand is just raised upwards. Joel felt that he had grasped the trick of using spells, and became more and more addicted to books. When his roommate got up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, he had already finished reading standard spells, level 1. Eddie yawned. Joel, let's play cards? I was just about to say, do you want to start a profitable business? Joel closed the book and stretched. What business? Eddie's eyes lit up when he heard about money. Sell these poker cards. Joel pointed at the poker cards in Eddie's hand and promote the playing method so we can make some quick money. We have about a week. If it takes longer, the senior students will also react and we won't be able to make this money. Joel shrugged. After all, the production of poker cards is not difficult. Who of you is interested? Eddie thought this method was okay and excitedly raised the poker cards in his hand. Sergey hesitated to speak. Alan glanced at Sergey. I don't need it. You guys can work together. I can help a little. I can help make poker cards, Sergey said after hesitating for a while. I can do it very quickly. No one refuted this. In the transfiguration class this morning, Sergey had already proved his talent, but Joel was very curious. With Sergey's usual personality and family background, he shouldn't be interested in such a small business, right? Joel still remembered the box that Sergey carried in his hand on the first night of Hogwarts. It was inlaid with a large ruby. No matter how he thought about it, Sergey's family didn't want to be short of money. Then I'll be responsible for sales. Eddie was so excited that he felt that piles of gold galleons were waiting for him. I can sell them in the common rooms of Gryffindor and Hufflepuff. You have done all the work. What should I do? Joel said. You. Eddie thought for a while. Do you want to sell poker cards? Not really. Joel thought he was okay hiding behind the scenes to come up with some planning ideas, but he couldn't open his mouth when he was asked to go to the front line to sell to strangers. Then let's do this. Eddie thought of a good idea. Sergey will be responsible for the production of playing cards, and he will take 30% of the final profit. I will be responsible for sales and take 30% of the profit. Joel provided the idea before. Can you take 40%? That's not appropriate, Joel thought for a while. I'll take 20% and you two will each take 40%. This is just a small business and he believes that he has not made a contribution that matches the 40% profit. It is not appropriate to take so much. He just wants to earn a small amount of startup capital now, starting with playing cards and playing landlord. He has countless ideas in his mind that can be realized. Eddie and Sergey thought about it for a while and agreed to start their business after the herbal medicine class this afternoon. Eddie was too excited and pulled Alan and Sergey to play a landlord again in the dormitory. Joel lay down on the bed, covered himself with a thick quilt, and stretched comfortably. The afternoon sun is not glaring, just shining in through the window. I mark out my own territory on the dormitory floor. My roommates are laughing and talking in the room, and the sun is shining brightly outside the room. Life in the magic world is really comfortable. Please recommend. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15. Good luck. The person who taught Joel and the others was Professor Sprout, the Dean of Hufflepuff House, who was kind, as long as you didn't destroy the herbs in the greenhouse. Does anyone know the name and use of this herb? Professor Sprout smiled gently. The students came closer to see a light blue flower that looked like a morning glory on the table. It was fragrant and calming. The students looked at each other. This was their first herb class. They had never been exposed to herbology since they were young, so they didn't know the answer to this question at all. They thought they would find the answer in the textbook, but it didn't work out. No one knows? Professor Sprout said with a bit of disappointment. Someone from the Hufflepuff house recognized it this morning. If anyone can give the answer accurately, I will give his house 5 points. Sprout threw out his reward. The students shook their heads. The reward was tempting, and they could show off in front of their classmates, but they really didn't know the answer. Joel took a glance, and the moment he saw the light blue flower, a message flashed through his mind. He knew that the basic herb identification he had drawn earlier had played a role. He raised his hand steadily. Professor Sprout was very happy to see that a student dared to answer the question. Mr. Joel Taylor from Ravenclaw? Tell me your answer. This is the tranquilizing flower. The juice can be used to make basic healing potions. The hemostatic agent also contains tranquilizing flower ingredients. Joel said the information in his mind. Excellent. Sprout praised. 5 points for Ravenclaw. Where did you know the answer? Eddie asked the question in his heart. He and Joel both came from the Muggle world and should know nothing about the magical world. I learned it by myself during the summer vacation, Joel said. This is the knowledge of herbal medicine for the 2nd grade, and we will learn it next year. The first half of this sentence was false, but the second half was true, which made Eddie half believing, but this did not prevent other students from looking at him with envy. Children always like to show off in front of others, and this is a rare opportunity. They followed Professor Sprout to learn about some plants in the greenhouse, and the class was over. After dinner in the auditorium, Sergey made 2 decks of poker in the dormitory. The speed was fast and the poker cards were beautiful, which made Eddie and others very satisfied. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Eddie, Alan and Sergey sat on the sofa in the central area of the common room with poker cards, trying to promote the playing method of landlord. Joel sat in the study area of the lounge, reviewing the book Standard Spells, Elementary in his hand, trying to master the sticking spell. This was his first time to enter the study area, and he realized the wonderfulness of this place when he sat on the chair. The entire study area was cast with some kind of soundproofing magic, making the surrounding air unusually quiet. Joel couldn't even hear the sounds coming from the center of the common room. This is a good place to read books in peace. Joel finally understood why so many Ravenclaw students stayed in the common room to study instead of choosing the Hogwarts library with more books. Such good study conditions, Joel would naturally not miss it. He took a quill and dipped it in some ink and began to take notes while reading. There was not much content in the sticking spell. After Joel read it twice to make sure he could try it, he picked up the wand in his hand. He aimed at the quill and parchment. Wow, Bob, he whispered softly, and magic gushed out, and under Joel's control, the 2 items were glued together. Success. Joel couldn't believe it. This is the sticking spell. He thought it would be so difficult, but it turned out to be a paper tiger that would break at the touch. Joel reached out and picked up the quill. The quill still had the slightly yellowed parchment. The 2 were stuck together, as if they would never separate. After 3 seconds in the air, Miss Quill abandoned her beloved Mr. Parchment. Joel watched the parchment swaying in the air and falling onto the table. Joel. He tried it again. 3 seconds later, Miss Quill abandoned her old love again. Mr. Parchment fell slowly and reluctantly. Joel could imagine Mr. Parchment crying. It seems that this spell is not that simple. Joel also discovered another thing. He always learned new spells very quickly. He could cast the floating spell on the train and the sticking spell he was practicing now in 1 or 2 times, which proved that he had a thorough understanding of the textbooks. But the effect was greatly reduced, and it was not as described in the textbooks. Joel judged that his magic aptitude was not strong enough. If he could control more magic, the power of the spell would definitely be stronger. In short, the immediate goal is to earn 1000 galleons as soon as possible and refresh the magic qualification. On the other side, the scene of Eddie and the other 2 sitting around playing landlord quickly attracted many Ravenclaw students. What is this? Asked a 2nd-year boy. Poker. I often played it when I was in elementary school in the Muggle world. 4th-year Penelope Clearwater was a little excited, but I have never seen this kind of play. Plain. Crush. Alan threw out 4 aces. It looks pretty good. Someone commented. I don't think it's good. There is no special effect at all. The wizard chess will talk when it mashes the opponent's chess pieces. There are also criticisms, and they are not satisfied with the plain poker cards. It depends on the price, right? Eddie turned around. A normal set of wizard chess costs 10 galleons, and this deck of poker cards only costs 10 sickles. The price difference is 17 times. The price is fair. Penelope thought for a moment, and after watching Eddie and others throwing poker cards, she couldn't help but feel a little itchy. Are you selling them? She asked Eddie. Eddie was excited. We have produced several decks of cards. They are in my dormitory. If you want them, I will go get them now. No problem. 7 silver sickles. Penelope agreed straightforwardly and took out silver coins from her wallet. I will be right back. Eddie stood up and scanned the crowd. Let the rest of us tell you about this new way of playing. He did not find Joel, who was huddled in the study area, but he saw a classmate he knew. "Hey Liz," he called out. "Alan, you teach her. I will go get the cards." He was very excited to open the shop and collect money soon. Hey Lizzie Selwyn did not expect Eddie to suddenly call her name. She waved her hand and shrank back. But Eddie grabbed her and said, "Just do me a favor, okay?" "Okay." Hey Lizzie was embarrassed to refuse other people's requests. She kept her head down when she spoke. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito, and her long and smooth black hair on both sides covered her cheeks. Eddie was very happy and quickly pushed through the crowd to leave. "Give me a deck too," the boy who said the poker cards were too plain said, his expression a little unnatural. "It's just tentacles anyway. I won't lose or be fooled." Eddie was delighted and hurried to the dormitory. Haley sat down to replace Eddie. Sergey didn't react. Alan blushed and explained the rules again. She nodded to show that she remembered. After the cards were dealt, the crowd of onlookers behind Haley exclaimed. They had watched a few rounds and didn't understand the rules, but they could tell whether Haley's hand was good or bad. Haley's back tightened under their stares, and she felt a fever on her face, and her head lowered. 3 with 2. Alan called the landlord and threw out a set first. Bomb. Haley hesitated for a while and threw out 4K cards. Sergey pursed his lips and began to count the cards. Alan took a look at his hand and felt that it was not appropriate to throw a bomb in the first round, so he let it go. "That's the way to play it, right?" Haley threw a straight from 3 to J, and now she had 4 cards left in her hand. Sergey raised his lips slightly and turned his cards over on the table. Alan frowned. "King bomb." He threw out the big and small jokers, intending to take a chance. Alan threw out 3 pairs in a row, and Haley still lowered her head and threw the 4 cards in her hand on the table. 4 aces. Another bomb. Penelope, who was watching, finally spoke up. She felt that she would win as soon as she saw the cards in Haley's hand. This girl had an unusually good luck in the first round. Alan's face swelled up with anger. He felt that Haley was really lucky this time. He quickly shuffled the cards and started the next round again. Eddie rushed back and saw that all the students were surrounding Haley, so he also went over. Another bomb. Woohoo. So cool. The Ravenclaw students cheered. In the last hand, Haley touched 3 bombs again. At Penelope's urging, she called the landlord. Alan and Sergey didn't even have room to resist and were blown up directly. "Your poker." Eddie stood on tiptoe and patted Penelope's shoulder from behind. Penelope took the poker, handed over the 10 silver sickles in her hand, and continued to look at the game without turning her head. Haley's good luck did not stop. After 2 consecutive perfect hands, Alan and Sergey were a little numb. In a game of landlord, she couldn't play any cards. It was all Haley's performance. Please vote for recommendation. Chapter 16. Potions. Joel also came over. He was so absorbed in reading that he realized something was wrong with the game when the boy sitting next to him stood up and started to watch the game. Everyone gathered behind one seat, and there was no one behind Sergey and Alan. What happened? He was too short and came too late. Unlike Eddie, who found a seat next to Haley, Haley was already surrounded by people when Joel arrived at the sofa. He could not see the details of the game, but could only hear the exclamations of the crowd and the conversations of the 3 people in the game. Haley won the game again. She felt that it was meaningless to win the game all the time. In addition, the crowd watching made her, who was already introverted, feel uneasy. She turned her head and saw Eddie lying next to her, shaking his head and doubting his life. "You're back. Here." She quickly stuffed the cards into Eddie's hand, then stood up and squeezed through the crowd and ran away. Eddie took the cards from Haley's hand. "Oh my god," he exclaimed, and then raised the corners of his mouth high, grabbed the landlord, and when he flipped the other 3 cards, the corners of his mouth fell a little. But the cards that Haley left him were too good. Although the process was bumpy, he still won. In the next few games, no one could draw good cards continuously. At this time, the level of the players was tested more. Sergey and Alan each won a few games, which can be regarded as saving some face. Many students are very interested in playing cards and landlords. When they ordered playing cards, they also asked for a detailed explanation of the rules. Eddie agreed one by one. It was getting late, and they returned to the dormitory exhausted. Eddie threw himself on the bed and let out a long sigh. "I'm so tired." Alan packed his toiletries and ran into the bathroom in slippers. Joel leaned on the head of the bed and continued to read his elementary transformation guide. He was obsessed with how to turn a dinner plate into a goblet. Sergey returned to the dormitory and began to make playing cards. "Can you give me a copy of the instructions?" He turned around and asked Joel. "I'll write it now." Joel jumped off the bed. "I'll write a few more copies for backup." "One copy is enough. I can use duplicate to keep the instructions for a day." Joel was stunned for a second, and then he dipped his quill pen in ink and wrote all the rules in his mind on the parchment. The parchment bought by the original owner of the body was very cheap. The color of the paper was darker than ordinary parchment, and there were some spots on it. The quill pen felt very rough when writing on it. He tried to write the rules as simple and easy to understand as possible. After all, the students of Hogwarts had never played the game of landlord before. The planning skills of his previous life were clearly displayed. In just 10 minutes, he handed the written rules to Sergey. "Duplicate," Sergey murmured, and gently tapped the parchment with his wand. Another identical parchment appeared on the table. This copy spell turned the magic power into the appearance of a copy, and it had a time limit, which was suitable for items such as the instructions for playing, that did not need to be held for a long time. Joel raised his eyebrows and thought that this child was really gifted. In the next 2 days, Eddie wandered around the common rooms of Gryffindor and Hufflepuff with dozens of decks of playing cards made by Sergey, with instructions for the new way of playing. Students from both colleges warmly welcomed Eddie. Many young wizards came from the Muggle world and had some knowledge of playing cards before. They were very interested in the new way of playing brought by Eddie. With the cooperation of Eddie and the Weirlightwinds who were willing to demonstrate, the young wizards of Gryffindor purchased a lot of decks of playing cards. After the sales promotion, Eddie also gave the Weirlight brothers 2 decks of playing cards as a token of his gratitude. The sales of playing cards grew rapidly, and soon it was Friday. Today they only had one class. Potions with Hufflepuff. Professor Snape walked into the underground classroom with a vigorous step and then closed the door forcefully. The animal specimens around the classroom revealed a cold and creepy atmosphere. "I will take attendance in every class. If you don't want me to put you in detention to clean up the bodies of those dead animals, you'd better come to class on time," Snape said in a low voice. He was dressed in black, just like in the original novel, with black hair and black eyes. There was no trace of emotion in his eyes. It was obvious that he had mastered the art of occlumency to the extreme. The classroom was silent. The children were frightened by Snape's words. Snape continued, "Potions is the most profound and difficult art. The crucibles emit wisps of white smoke. The fragrance of potions lingers in the nose, and the boiling potions make gurgling sounds. It is so fascinating. As a professor, I will teach you the contents of the textbook, but this is far from enough for potions. A lot of knowledge and tricks are not written in the books. You need to think hard and do more to experience the mystery and fun of potions. Of course, the prerequisite is that you had better have a smart brain. I have taught many students before, and their brains are no different from those of trolls except that their heads are much smaller." After saying this, Professor Snape began his first class. Scabies potion. "I think the textbook has already described it in great detail." Professor Snape asked them to prepare the potion in the first class. "Porcupine quills, snake fangs, horn slugs. There are stocks in the cabinet in front of the classroom. What are you waiting for? Why don't you act quickly?" Everyone rushed forward. Joel first memorized the grams of the raw materials needed for the scabies potion, walked up slowly, weighed enough raw materials, and returned to his seat. He weighed it again with his own second-hand scale, and after confirming that the grams were correct, he began to try. First, crush the snake fangs into powder with a silver knife, and then cut off the horns of the horned slugs. This process was extremely difficult. Joel had never really seen a slug before, and he was very resistant to this slippery species. Although he was disgusted, he honestly cut off the horns of 5 slugs in order to complete the task and not let Snape have a negative evaluation of him. According to the textbook, the next step should be to set up the crucible and start the fire. Joel was stumped at this step. The textbook Magic Pharmacy and Potion also explained how to ignite the fire. Poke the magic wand into the space between the crucible pot and the base, then gently tap the pot upwards, and the magic power will automatically guide the sparks to complete the ignition. He followed the instructions, and poked the magic wand into the crucible and poked it. Sporadic sparks came out of the base of the crucible, and a weak flame slowly emerged. Joel measured the water temperature bit by bit. When he poured the first handful of potion materials into the crucible, Alan beside him had already begun to stir the crucible skillfully, and a fragrance had already emanated. It seemed that he had completed a small step. The temperature of the flame he created was really low. At this rate, he might not be able to finish this potion by the end of get out of class. Alan, can you help me turn up the fire? Joel asked Alan for help, while Professor Snape was walking around with his hands behind his back. I need to grind the snake's fangs into smaller pieces. Alan nodded, took out his wand, and poked Joel's cauldron twice. He stared at the cauldron in front of him, and the white smoke from the potion almost buried his face. The flames began to burn at the old crucible base, making Joel feel a little warm in the cold and damp underground classroom. Please vote for me. This chapter mentions that a wand is needed to make potions, which is naturally based on a reason. Here is an interview with J.K. Rowling about whether a wand is needed in potions. I've posted it below. It is often asked whether a muggle could create a magic potion given a potions book and the right ingredients. The answer unfortunately is no. There is always some element of wand work necessary to make a potion. Merely adding dead flies and asphodel to a pot hanging over a fire will give you nothing but nasty tasting, not to mention poisonous soup. Link, the general meaning is that muggles have no way to make potions, even if they have the raw materials, and a wand must be used in the refining process. Chapter 17. Quit while you're at it. Joel followed the steps and put the snake's fang in first. When the bottom of the crucible rose to the right temperature, he put the horn of the slug in. After a while, he threw the slug into the pot. The next step, tap the crucible with your wand and inject magic into it until the color of the potion turns light blue. Then add dry nettles and stir until it turns milky white. Joel tried it and felt the magic flow out through his fingertips. The color of the potion in the crucible turned gray, which was far from the light blue. He turned around and wanted to ask Alan for help, but saw Professor Snape walking towards them with his hands behind his back. Joel watched Snape check everyone's progress in each crucible and criticized the Hufflepuff students with foul language. A little badger weighed the wrong amount of slug, and his potion had turned black, like oil. Snape walked to Alan's cauldron and looked at the pot of potion that gradually turned milky white. It can be said that this pot of scabies potion was made quickly and successfully. His tightly pursed lips loosened slightly, but he did not give Ravenclaw extra points. He turned his head and looked at Joel's cauldron. Sir, what are you waiting for? Did you not eat this morning and want to cook this pot of potion for your breakfast? He asked bluntly. Under Snape's death gaze, Joel gritted his teeth and continued to hit the crucible with his wand. The potion in the crucible no longer reacted. The boiling slug horns and snake teeth merged together to form a grey paste, which looked extremely ugly and was completely different from the one in Alan's crucible at the next table. Snape's lips, which had just loosened slightly because of Alan's good performance, pursed again. I think you should learn from the gentleman next to you how to use a wand to control your magic power, instead of using magic like a stupid giant waving a stick. He spoke sweetly again. However, Snape's sarcasm was still effective for those young wizards who were not familiar with the world, but it was nothing to Joel, an old and resilient man who could even withstand the blessing of working 996. Snape just remembered his and Alan's names, and then deducted 3 points from Ravenclaw College. Before he could say anything more, a clumsy Hufflepuff boy exploded his cauldron. Streams of green liquid splashed out, hitting the clothes of the surrounding students, burning small holes, and causing bursts of exclamations. Damn it. Did you add dried nettles in advance? Snape was very annoyed. He walked quickly to the scene of the accident and waved his wand to clean up the remaining green liquid. Hurry to the hospital wing. I think you should remember the location of the hospital wing in your head, right? The Hufflepuff student who caused the trouble nodded with a sad face like a chicken pecking at rice, holding his forearm, where the cloth of the robe had been burned clean, and blisters appeared on the skin of his forearm, looking miserable. Another Hufflepuff student, at the signal of Professor Snape, helped the injured person out of the classroom. Eddie's robe was also affected, and a small hole was dissolved in his abdomen by the green liquid, revealing the t-shirt inside, a Mickey Mouse with a smiling face, while he himself was complaining to Alan with a sad face. Alan had already finished making the potion at this time. He poured all the potions in the crucible into the potion bottle, quietly listened to Eddie's endless complaints, and responded with and ah from time to time. After this class, most students submitted their own potions. Eddie's potion made a smell of budger, and submitted it. Only Joel and a few students who were really poor in potion talent and frequently exploded, did not submit their homework. Before leaving, Snape looked at the few people with eyes, as if he wanted to eat them alive. Joel knew that his talent for potions was not high, but he still planned to work hard. Even if he could not become a potion master, at least he had to get an O in the ultimate wizard examination. But there is also good news. In the past week, poker and landlord games have spread rapidly. Every student in Hogwarts has heard of them. Everyone sees classmates holding poker cards and shouting in the common room, saying bombs, airplanes. Sometimes they want to play a few games, so 2 or 3 people pool their money to buy a deck of poker from Eddie and get a detailed landlord manual. It is worth noting that, after discussing with Sergi and Joel on Friday, Eddie lowered the price of poker cards to 6 sickles again, because making poker cards really does not require much technical content, and pricing too high will reduce shipments. Eddie deliberately returned the remaining 4 sickles to the customer, who bought the poker cards at 10 sickles before, so as to avoid giving people a chance to criticize him. Sergi now stays up late every night, and can make more than 40 decks of cards a day. The materials used in the cards are not particular. If only the material cost is calculated, a deck of cards only costs 3 copper nuts on average. For this, the 3 of them used up all the white paper they bought in Diagon Alley during the summer vacation, which was originally used for calculations and writing paper drafts. After getting the cards, the students don't necessarily have to play a landlord. Blackjack is easier for them to accept. Some even play bridge and Texas Hold'em. For a time, the poker trend in Hogwarts was popular. Many people gave up wizard chess and gobstones, a marble game, and threw themselves into the arms of poker. This morning I found someone trying to steal my business. Eddie walked into the dormitory with a sullen face on Saturday morning and slammed the door shut. Slytherin House has already produced their own playing cards. It's no big deal. Joel leaned against the head of the bed and turned a page of a book. Didn't I say it before? Playing cards are too simple to make. There's no technical content. A senior student can figure it out after a while of studying. The main reason we were able to sell so many playing cards before was because we acted quickly. By the time someone realized what was happening, we had lost all our advantages. Rough workmanship, slow production. Joel explained to Eddie. It's my fault. Sergi, who was sitting on a chair and concentrating on making poker cards, suddenly said, I forgot to make the cards more beautiful. This has nothing to do with you. Joel glanced at him. This is to make a quick buck. How many have we sold now? Eddie said immediately. A total of 156 decks of cards were sold, and a total profit of 936 sickles was made. Joel should get 187.2 sickles, and Sergi and I should get 374.4 sickles each. So many sold? Alan was a little surprised. He had been playing the role of a small transparent person for the past week, since he came to school. He had not been to any place other than the classroom, the auditorium, the dormitory, and at most a library. Not only that, he now couldn't even recognize all the girls in his college and grade. It should be said that so far, the only people he was familiar with were the few people in his dormitory. Alan, who basically didn't communicate with the outside world, naturally didn't know how popular poker cards were in Hogwarts. Let's quit while we're ahead, Joel said. The poker trend won't last long. They'll get bored soon. After all, poker is too plain for wizards. Even the old-fashioned gobstones are more interesting than the plain poker. They're just playing poker for a while now. When they get tired of it, they'll have to return to Quidditch and wizard chess. This is the truth. Alan nodded in agreement. He got bored after playing Dowdizu for less than a week. Wizard chess is more fun. But if his roommates are short of one, he doesn't mind playing Dowdizu. Joel has a thorough understanding of the wizard psychology and knows that they are just looking for something new. If you were in the magic world, would you play Dowdizu for 7 years? What a joke. Please recommend, collect, and invest. Chapter 18. Lady Luck is smiling. After selling all the poker cards left by surgery, they sold a total of 165 decks of poker and earned 990 silver sickles. According to the previous share ratio, Joel could get 198 sickles, and every 17 sickles could be exchanged for 1 galleon, which means that Joel got a total of 11 galleons and 11 sickles. This directly expanded his assets. Now he has a total of 19 galleons and 7 nuts. Unfortunately, there is still a gap from the 50 galleons required by the theory of spells. In his spare time these days, he also made up for the knowledge of the sticking spell. Although his magic talent is not outstanding, Joel still wants to make up for it through his own efforts. But time is limited after all. Joel must learn the knowledge of swinging the stick, chanting intonation, magic guidance, etc. In a week, it is indeed difficult for a spell beginner to master the sticking spell. But looking down at the more than 10 gold coins in his hand, Joel clenched his fists and felt excited. This means that his money-making business has officially begun. He is one step closer to exchanging for the 1000 galleons required for the source of magic. He imitated the classic action in a Chinese TV series, clenching one hand into a fist and bending his arm downward to exert force. Joel, come on. How about we go to the common room and play a few more rounds? Eddie was eager to try. There must be a lot of people playing landlord there now. We got started earlier than them, and our card skills are better. We can go there to show off. Having made such a large sum of money, Eddie wanted to go out and show off. After the poker business was cancelled, surgery had nothing to do, and went to the library again. No one was there early on Sunday morning, and only the 3 of them were left in the dormitory. Alan hesitated for a moment, but still closed the advanced magic potion making that he had already opened. Joel, are you going? Joel shrugged his shoulders. He had just made a lot of money and was in a good mood at the moment. No problem. The 3 of them came to the common room, where there were indeed many students sitting on the sofa playing poker. Some of them took the initiative to say hello to Eddie when they saw him. Eddie smiled in response, but his young body had a bit of the flavor of a successful person waving to everyone calmly, which looked quite funny. Apparently, he had met many senior students while running around selling playing cards this week. There happened to be another table in the center of the common room, so the 3 of them quickly gathered at it. Many students finished their games and came over. In their eyes, Eddie and the other 2 were very good at playing landlord, so it was a good time to come and watch and learn from them. Alan was a little absent-minded today, and Joel was thinking about the money-making plan later. The 2 of them didn't focus on the game, so Eddie won several times in a row. Seeing his swollen look, his face flushed, and he pounded his chest with his hands, and he made 1 or 2 strange noises from time to time. His image was very similar to Caesar, the chimpanzee in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Many students gathered around the sofa also started to make a fuss, constantly praising Eddie, which made him even more swollen. Eddie suddenly saw a figure walking out of the girls' dormitory area, holding a pile of books in his hands and walking out. "Howls," he called. The girl with long black hair froze for a moment, and Eddie put down his cards and ran over to pull Haley's arm. As always, Haley lowered her head and whispered something. After a while, Eddie came back with a bright smile, and Haley, who was still crestfallen, was still behind him. "Today I must let you see my strength," Eddie said to the students who were watching. Many of them were impressed by Haley. After all, it was rare to find someone who could get a good hand of cards every time. Eddie had just won several games in a row, and now he was completely crazy, and he had to prove his level of playing landlord. Among the 4 people in the dormitory, Eddie was not very smart. He had been suppressed by his 3 roommates in all aspects for a week after the start of school. He was already depressed and unhappy. He just made a lot of money in the past 2 days, and couldn't wait to show off. At this time, he won several games of Landlord in a row and naively thought that he was going to take off. Joel felt that Eddie did not correctly recognize his shining points. He was very outgoing and good at dealing with others. This was an advantage that the 3 roommates in the same dormitory did not have, but Eddie himself could not realize it. Alan saw Eddie pulling Haley over and said quickly, "Then you guys play first. I'm going back to the dormitory to read." He was still thinking about the book Advanced Potion Making in his heart. Joel also wanted to leave first, but he was beaten by Alan first, so he had to continue sitting down and playing as Eddie's tool for the card game. Haley also had her own things to do, but she was embarrassed to refuse Eddie, so she had to play with him for a few rounds. She wanted to get rid of Eddie's entanglement as soon as possible, as she hadn't figured out the sticking spell yet. Putting the pile of books in her hands on the sofa, she grabbed the cards. Bomb. Bomb. King bomb. After throwing all the cards in her hand, Haley stomped her feet lightly. "Can I leave? I still have a lot of things to do." This plot has been repeated for 3 rounds, and Joel has become a little numb. The students watching began to make a noise. In their opinion, Haley's strength is undoubtedly stronger. Most of the time, luck is also a part of strength. I believe it. Eddie's face flushed, and he piled the cards together with trembling hands, and then shuffled them frantically. "I'll deal the cards." He didn't believe that Haley always had such good luck. She must have cheated. She used some magic that they didn't know about to change all her cards into the most perfect results. Eddie stared at the cards in his hand and dealt them to the 3 people one by one, leaving the last 3 cards. Joel looked helpless. He knew that Eddie was just confused by the loss. He had been winning streak before, but it was hard to win against Haley. In addition, it was hard to save face when being watched by so many people. He just learned about what happened to Haley before. This girl's luck is indeed a bit weird. The luck is so good that it's bursting. Haley picked up the cards and took a look. Joel took the opportunity to look over and finally saw Haley's face clearly. This girl's appearance is not absolutely beautiful, but her delicate features, long straight black hair, and black college robes are extremely in line with Joel's aesthetics. "Call the landlord," Eddie said after looking at the cards in his hand. "Don't grab." Joel gave up the game after looking at the cards. "No." Haley clenched her cards and whispered. Eddie closed his eyes, grabbed the 3 cards on the deck, and threw them on the table with force. The moment he saw the cards, he laughed easily. These 3 cards helped him to collect a set of bombs. Eddie played first and played a single 4. Joel followed with a 6. Haley played a 7. Eddie followed with a Q. Joel checked the cards. Haley hesitated for a while and played a king. Eddie was stunned for a second, looking at the remaining 15 cards in Haley's hand, thinking for a moment, and decided not to play. He had 2 sets of bombs in his hand, and there were still 3 single cards that he couldn't play. He planned to be greedy. "Can you kill me in 15 cards? Can you kill me in 15 cards? If you can kill me Eddie in 15 cards today, I will eat this table on the spot," Eddie boasted. The onlookers laughed kindly. Joel felt that Eddie's words were quite similar to the classic quotes of a deceased anchor in his previous life. Seeing Eddie choose to check, Haley's eyes lit up with joy, and she threw out 15 cards directly, with 3 pairs on the 789 plain 15 cards poured out in an instant, and everyone was stunned. "What?" Eddie couldn't believe it. He leaned forward and looked at the cards Haley threw out, but no matter how he turned them, he couldn't find any problems. Eddie was silent. He was slapped in the face just after he said that. His cheeks were burning, and he felt uncomfortable. He wanted to find a hole to crawl into. He cleaned up the game. Haley knew that she was finally free. She quickly picked up the pile of books on the sofa and walked out of the common room quickly. "She is so lucky. I must have won her last hand. She didn't even count the cards. So why wasn't she afraid of my bomb?" Eddie was still mumbling something. The continuous losses just now were like a basin of cold water poured down on him, which made his inflated heart sober up a lot. He picked up the poker cards and went back to the dormitory. Joel sat on the sofa, biting his lower lip with his upper teeth. Alan was sitting at the table reading a book, while Eddie rolled himself into the quilt, muffled under the pillow and didn't speak. "What's wrong with him?" Alan gestured and pointed at Eddie lying on the bed. Joel shook his head and didn't answer Alan's question. He picked up the 2 spell books and a quill on the desk and left the dormitory. He felt that he could still save himself. Maybe there would be a surprise. Please recommend and collect. Chapter 19. Request. The entrance to the library is on the 2nd floor of the main castle of Hogwarts. It was Joel's first time to come to the library. He was stunned by the spectacular scene as soon as he entered. There are thousands of wooden bookshelves here, each of which is 5 or 6 meters high and is neatly stacked with books, leaving no space. There is a long corridor between each bookshelf, and in the middle of the corridor there are long tables and several chairs for students to study and read. There is also a golden chandelier directly above the long table, which is filled with quietly burning candles, providing light for the library. The entire library is silent. It is now 10:15 on Sunday morning, and many students are already sitting in the seats in the library reading. To Joel's right is the service desk, where procedures such as borrowing and returning books are carried out. The librarian, Mrs. Immerpence, is sitting at the service desk, writing and drawing on parchment with a feather pen. When Joel entered here, she raised her head and stared at him with her sharp eyes like an eagle, as if she was looking at a student who had done something wrong. Joel was somewhat annoyed by her stare, frowned slightly and walked forward with his spellbook in his arms. He turned around in the library, trying to find his target. In front of a bookshelf, he saw a girl with long black hair with her back to him, thin shoulders, squatting on the ground and picking up books at the bottom of the bookshelf. Student Selwyn? He walked forward and called softly. The girl was stunned for a moment, turned around and slightly widened her eyes. Joel was stunned when he saw the girl's face. It was Qiu Zhang. Her shoulder width and hairstyle were very similar to those of Haley. Joel was not very familiar with either of them, and there were not many junior girls with long black hair in the school, so he made a mistake at first. When Qiu Zhang stood up, Joel could find the difference between the two of them. Qiu was a little shorter, with softer facial features, and a clear East Station look. Although Haley also had long straight black hair, her facial features were sharper than Qiu's, and she looked a bit aggressive like a typical Western white person. Qiu, have you met Miss Selwyn? Joel was a little embarrassed, because he had mistaken someone for someone else. His eyes moved around the place, where Qiu had just squatted. How else? Qiu laughed, sweeping away the previous awkward atmosphere. She's sitting with me. I'll take you to find her. She didn't ask Joel the specific reason why he was looking for Haley, which made Joel feel very comfortable with her, like a spring breeze. Qiu took him around the bookshelves in the library. Joel didn't understand why Qiu was so familiar with this place after only being here for a week. She, Marita and I are in the same dormitory. Usually, people mistake us for each other. Qiu took the initiative to speak, with a smile on her face. Joel nodded. Are you looking for a book on spells? The bookshelf where he just saw Qiu squatting down to look through was full of spells. Qiu was stunned for a second and then laughed. The dimples on her cheeks looked particularly cute. She knew that Joel was also a meticulous person. Yes, Haley and I plan to make every effort on the last day to try to understand the sticking spell. I suggest that you should thoroughly understand the explanation in the standard spells. After all, it is our textbook, Joel said. I think Professor Flitwick's original intention is to make us pay attention to the textbook. Qiu pondered for 2 seconds. Thank you, but we have been thinking about it for a long time, and tried many times but failed. She frowned slightly, obviously troubled by the sticking spell, and Joel could not give any better suggestions. After walking around the library for 3 minutes, the two of them finally came to a remote corner. Haley was reading a book at the long table. She leaned over, and her eyes were almost glued to the book. Haley, Joel is looking for you. Looking at Haley's posture of reading, Qiu pursed her lips and smiled. After saying this, Qiu left directly, leaving space for the two of them. Now only Haley and Joel were left at the long table. Haley looked up blankly, and her posture made her look a little silly. Seeing that it was Joel, Haley immediately lowered her head, like an ostrich taking shelter. She thought Joel was here to ask her to play poker like Eddie. Miss Selwyn, I have something to confirm with you. Joel put the book in his hand on the table, leaned down and said seriously. What? Haley breathed a sigh of relief when she realized that Joel was not here to ask her to play cards. She looked up at Joel, and her fair face inexplicably flushed. Joel felt that he might be handsome to Haley. He looked around and made sure that no one was around and said, "Are you born with good luck?" Haley glanced at him, then pursed her lips tightly and nodded slightly. "Not really, better than ordinary people," she stammered. "Does everything you think in your heart come true?" Haley hesitated. Basically. Then can you do me a favor?" Joel looked pleading and wrote on the parchment with a quill. Haley opened her mouth slightly, then struggled and hesitated. Her eyebrows drooped again, and her long eyelashes flickered. Her eyebrows were frowning, and her eyelashes were falling. Such a word suddenly popped up in Joel's mind, which was the most appropriate to describe Haley's current state. "Can you tell me what you want to help with first?" Haley blushed, "Then I'll think about whether to agree." She was very easy to talk to before, and she would agree to any request made by the other party, and sometimes she would wrong herself to make others happy. But after being forced by Eddie to play a landlord twice, Haley also realized that she should learn to refuse, otherwise it would really delay her time, especially when she was eager to learn the sticking spell. This was her first attempt, but she had exhausted all her courage. "I want to draw a turntable." Joel's feather pen quickly moved on the parchment, similar to the kind of lottery. "I don't know if you have come into contact with it before." He roughly drew the lucky turntable in the system mall, which looked quite similar, but without coloring. "Then you turn the feather pen as a pointer to see if it can fall on the position I want. It's here." Joel marked an area on the turntable, smeared this small area with ink, and wrote the words "magic theory" under the area. "That's it?" Haley breathed a sigh of relief. This is not difficult, and will not delay her for a long time. "That's it." Joel didn't know whether his metaphysical plan could succeed. "After you turn the turntable, can you say to me 'Wow, golden legend', please?" Joel said. Haley didn't know what tricks Joel was playing. The more he looked at it, the more it looked like a prank game. Please recommend. Chapter 20. Side quests. Joel offered to help Haley without violating reason, which made Haley, who was already soft-hearted, agree to him. She turned the quill Joel handed her, and the quill turned quickly, and then stopped at the shadow area Joel had previously painted, and the ink left a thick mark on the turntable. "Wow, golden legend," Haley whispered, her fair face flushed. She felt a little ashamed. It smelled like a Hearthstone card. "Great." Joel held the parchment excitedly. "Thank you so much, Haley." "You're welcome." Haley glanced at Joel's face, then lowered her head. "I will definitely thank you later." His fingers trembled, and he ran away quickly holding the two books and parchment. "I'm afraid he is a fool, isn't he?" Haley muttered to herself. But she quickly put this little episode behind her, and lay down again, her eyes only 5 inches, 12.7 centimeters, away from the books. Joel ran to the door of the library, and was stopped by the administrator. "Madam Pince, no running in the library," she roared. "Sorry, Madam Pince." Joel had forgotten this, and quickly stopped to apologize. Madam Pince did not let him go easily. She took the 2 books he was holding, and flipped through them carefully. Only after she found out that they were Joel's books did she let him go. When Joel returned to the dormitory, it was already noon, but he was obviously not in the mood for lunch. Eddie was still lying on the bed. Joel ignored Alan's surprised look, ran to the bed with the parchment in his hand, rolled the quilt around him, and rolled on the bed. He was like a caterpillar now. He looked at the parchment in his hand, and hesitated for a moment. There were 2 little people fighting madly in Joel's heart. 2 minutes later, he rolled the parchment into a ball. Then he swallowed it into his mouth. "This time I really invested a lot of money. I must draw the magic theory I want." It was difficult to use the lucky wheel to get the items I wanted with his own luck, but Haley's good luck one after another woke him up. In the game of Doubters Who, Haley's cards always did not conform to the knowledge of probability. Could her luck be transferred to herself through some medium? "The Pipi Xie crypt and gold system is the most useful in the universe," he muttered, charging the 9 galleons he had just turned into the system. When he spoke, the parchment in his mouth got stuck, and almost choked him to tears. Adding the £5 he had charged before, there were exactly 10 gold coins lying in the system panel. Lucky wheel. Joel's eyes widened, and he opened the system mall to redeem the lottery qualification. Start. The lucky wheel was spinning wildly, and Joel swallowed the parchment bit by bit. It was really disgusting. Joel frowned, feeling that the parchment was stuck in his throat, and couldn't swallow it. A bitter taste came up, making him nauseous. With great determination and great efforts, Joel finally swallowed the whole piece of paper. He closed his eyes and savored the taste of the parchment, wanting to keep Haley's good luck in his mouth for a while longer. Joel heard the sound of the turntable stopping, but he didn't dare to open his eyes to see. The previous 2 draws were free, so he wouldn't be too disappointed if he drew something bad. But he spent 10 galleons today. He worked hard for a week to earn this little money. Not only that, he also swallowed a piece of parchment. Thinking of this, Joel felt the sour taste in his mouth became stronger, and his stomach was protesting, constantly bubbling up with sour water. He admitted that he was gambling. There were hundreds of items in the mall, but he had to draw the only source of magic power, and the chance was very small. Whether he could get the 200 galleons depended on this turntable. Joel opened his eyes suddenly, and all he saw was a blue sky. Rare. Joel felt that the 2 words in the prompt box had a voice. Every morning when he was squatting in the toilet playing Hearthstone Legend, the innkeeper would remind him like this. You opened a blue rare gift box and obtained the item. Theory of magic. Elementary. A huge amount of knowledge suddenly flooded into my mind, and my head was dizzy, and it took a long time for me to wake up. He clicked on the magic in the system panel and saw that the spell progress bar was no longer grey, but an empty white, and he was overjoyed. It really works. Joel made a satisfied sound. Hey Liz, you are my lucky goddess in this life. I got this. It's really not good for me. Joel was trembling with excitement, and the sour taste in his mouth even began to sweeten. It's just parchment. As long as it can satisfy my wish, I will eat as much as I can. Suddenly, a bright red message box popped up on the system panel. It is detected that the host uses external forces to interfere with the lucky wheel. The system will issue tasks to the host according to the severity of the consequences. Joel guessed that this matter would not be so simple, and he only prayed to keep this hard-earned prize. Ding. The side quest is triggered. The mission period is 30 days. If the specified time limit is exceeded, the mission will be deemed to have failed. Mission content. Remove the door handle of Professor McGonagall's office without being discovered. This newly triggered mission made Joel dumbfounded instantly. Remove the door handle of Professor McGonagall's office? What kind of mission is this? The system will give rewards based on the completion of the mission. The penalty for mission failure, no matter what food the host eats within 7 days, it will taste like canned herring. Canned herring? Joel subconsciously wanted to dry heave. When he was in college, a roommate bought one for novelty. The disgusting sour smell filled the dormitory for 5 days. He never wanted to recall that terrible smell in his life. This mission failure penalty lasts for 7 days. It's better to just go on a hunger strike. No. Not only was it the parchment that he swallowed before, but also because of the terrible taste of canned herring, Joel felt that the acid water had already overflowed into his mouth. He jumped off the bed and rushed to the bathroom at the speed of a 100-meter sprint. He closed the door and retched. The soundproofing of the bathroom was not very good. Eddie heard the sound of Joel vomiting and stopped lying down. He took away the pillow covering his head. What's wrong with him? Eddie asked Alan, who was sitting upright in the chair. Alan opened his eyes and shook his head blankly. I don't know. He ran to the bed as soon as he came back. Maybe he has an upset stomach. Joel not only had an upset stomach, but it was more appropriate to describe him as vomiting and diarrhea. He ran to the bathroom 3 or 4 times in the afternoon before his stomach returned to normal. It seems that this parchment paper should not be eaten too much. Joel lay on his side on the bed, rubbing his stomach with his right hand, and his face was weak. Sergei returned to the dormitory before dinner, and was a little surprised to see Joel like this. What's wrong with you? Sergei rarely showed concern for others. Joel shook his head. It's just that my stomach isn't feeling well. I guess it's because I ate too much this morning. Joel has been to the bathroom several times this afternoon. Eddie came out of his shock, sitting on a chair with a box of cream biscuits in his hands. his legs swinging back and forth in the air. "Are you sure you don't want to go to the infirmary?" "No, I can get through it." Joel rejected Eddie's proposal. "Then are you still going to the spells class tomorrow morning?" Alan was a little worried. "I can ask for leave for you." "No." Upon hearing this, Joel felt full of strength. He sat up from the bed and waved his little hand. "I will never skip Professor Flitwick's class. After all the hard work and effort, 200 gold galleons are right in front of me. I have to crawl to the classroom, even if I have to." Please recommend. Chapter 21. Staying up all night practicing. Joel slipped out of the dormitory under the pretext of going to eat and called up the system panel. Excluding the 10 galleons used for the lottery, he still had 10 galleons and 7 nuts. The Pipi Shrimp Krypton Gold system is the best and most useful in the universe. Joel stood in the empty dormitory corridor and silently recited this sentence: "To charge 10 galleons into the system." He immediately found the sticking spell in the system spell learning column and spent 10 points to fill the progress bar to ensure that there was no mistake. The strange knowledge in his head increased. He took out his magic wand and said to the blue ribbon and wall in the corridor, "Wow, Bob." The ribbon seemed to be pushed hard by some external force and successfully adhered to the wall. Joel nodded secretly in his heart. After the proficiency of the spell was fully raised, the power of the sticking spell was much greater than before. Joel stood on tiptoe and pulled the ribbon hard. After tearing it twice, the ribbon still floated down. No, the effect is still not good. Joel stuffed the ribbon into his trouser pocket and walked downstairs slowly. There were not many students in the hall. Most of them had finished their dinner and returned to the common room. Qiu and Haley were still sitting at the Ravenclaw table. The two girls looked depressed. Joel guessed that they had not figured out the sticking spell yet. He thought for a moment and walked over. "Good evening, both of you." He took the initiative to say. Qiu forced a smile and put a piece of mushroom on her plate. Haley looked at him quietly, nodded and continued to eat. "Joel, have you learned the sticking spell?" Qiu glanced at Haley, who didn't intend to say anything and had no choice but to start a conversation. Otherwise, it would be too awkward for the three of them to sit here in silence. Joel nodded. "It's just that the power is not very strong, but the proficiency is pretty good." "Really?" Qiu was happy for him. "Show us now." Haley also moved her eyes from the chicken leg to Joel's face. He took out his wand and chanted the sticking spell on the plate and napkin. "Wow, Babu." The plate and napkin stuck together with a click. Joel tried to lift the plate, but the plate and the napkin dangled in the air. Joel had to pull them down hard to separate them. "Amazing." Qiu Zhang exclaimed. "You can't get Professor Flitwick's reward with this level of sticking spell," Haley said in a weak voice. "He will definitely check it out." Joel's momentum instantly deflated. "I know that." He hurriedly finished his meal and returned to the dormitory. In order not to disturb his roommate's rest, he stayed in the corner of the dormitory corridor and practiced the sticking spell with 2 pieces of parchment all night. As mentioned before, the power of a spell depends not only on the proficiency of the spell, but also on the strength of the magic and the degree of control of the magic. Joel's money ability can raise the proficiency of the spell to the highest level, but the magic aptitude he extracted is average. At the same time, he had too little experience in casting spells before, and he knew nothing about magic control. That night, he had been practicing how to use the magic power in his body to cast spells in a perfect state. The next morning, the first rays of the morning sun shone through the windows of the Ravenclaw Tower on Joel's handsome face. After a sleepless night, he felt that his head was about to split. He looked at the 2 pieces of parchment in his hand. They were tightly stuck together, and no matter how he shook them, he couldn't separate them. The sun shone on the slightly yellowed parchment. Between the 2 pieces of parchment, there was hope of 200 gold galleons. Joel wanted to get up from the ground, but his legs and feet were numb, and he sat down again. At this time, Sergei came out of the dormitory. His golden hair was neatly combed, and he walked out with a bag on his back. "Sergei, help me." Joel called for help. Sergei turned around and saw Joel lying on the ground. "You spent the night here?" He walked over and stretched out his right hand. Joel grabbed the 2 of them and pulled him up from the ground. "Otherwise," Joel complained, "I went through a lot of hardships to get the reward. Let's go eat together." Sergey pulled the corners of his stiff mouth, trying to show a kind smile. But in Joel's eyes, this smile looked extremely strange. Joel had been busy all night and was tired and hungry at this time, so he naturally agreed to Sergey's proposal. He tiptoed back to the dormitory. Eddie and Alan were still asleep. He took the things he needed for class and then took the Ravenclaw badge on the table. Joel ate and drank enough in the auditorium and felt that his mental and physical strength had recovered a lot, so he went to the magic classroom. He brought a book to preview the knowledge, and Sergey began to read the textbook using a method similar to quantum wave speed reading. Can you learn like this? Joel couldn't help asking. Sergey only took 4 or 5 seconds to read a page of the book. Sergey nodded, with a matter-of-fact look on his face. Joel saw that his eyes did not seem to be fake, and could only sigh that he was gifted. Professor Flitwick stepped on the podium, waving his wand in his hand, and his voice was shrill. You must remember that the chanting of the spell must be accurate. Once you mispronounce a syllable, it may cause extremely serious consequences. There are many wizards in the world who died from spell confusion. This is much more important than the wand swinging action. It won't put your life in danger, he reminded everyone. Next, I will lead you to read the phonetic table. You must remember it. He waved his wand and knocked on the blackboard behind him, and a table appeared on it. The first year kids followed Flitwick and read it over and over again. Joel could see that Professor Flitwick attached great importance to basic education and was not in a hurry to teach them spells. There was a reason why Harry and others did not start learning the levitation spell until Halloween in the original book. After class, the Hufflepuff students left first, and the 12 Ravenclaw freshmen stayed in their seats. Everyone knows that now is the time to test the results. Some are nervous, some are confident, some are indifferent. Professor Flitwick laughed, and the wrinkles on his face were squeezed together. It seems that everyone is ready. Which student will volunteer? Please vote for recommendation. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22. Receive Rewards. Joel raised his hand first. Professor, let me go first. After Professor Flitwick agreed, Joel took out the Ravenclaw badge that he had prepared long ago, pressed it on his left chest with his left hand, and tapped the badge Raven with his right hand. Wow, Babu. A night of hard work turned into magic, perfectly sticking the badge and the robe together. Professor Flitwick stretched out his hand and pulled the badge hard, but the badge did not move at all, as if it was naturally embedded in the robe. Great. Professor Flitwick applauded Joel's spell, and the students in the audience also applauded with a little envy on their faces. Awesome. Eddie sighed, rubbing his wand with his fingers. It was impossible to say that he didn't feel a little jealous in his heart. Alan applauded excitedly, his little face flushed, and he was really happy for Joel. Qiu and Hales were a little bit unbelievable. When they met him at the long table in the auditorium last night, Joel's sticking spell was obviously not very effective. Why did his spell become so skillful after a night? Except for his 3 roommates, no one knew how much hard work Joel had put in last night. He practiced the sticking spell all night without stopping. Even if his magical talent was not outstanding, he could not resist Joel's hard work. With his deep understanding of the sticking spell, it was reasonable for him to have such a result. Since you don't have talent, you might as well start early and work harder. You can also be stronger than the genius who doesn't work hard. But in this world, Zhang is a minority after all. There are more people who are both talented and willing to work hard. The second person to raise his hand was Sergey. His performance was not inferior to Joel. Professor Flitwick could not find any fault with his success. Is there anyone else who wants to show it? Professor Flitwick asked the students in the audience. No one said anything. Haley bit her lower lip and raised her hand. Under Professor Flitwick's eager expectation, she cast the sticking spell with trembling hands. The Ravenclaw Raven badge stopped on her chest for 2 seconds and then fell off. Her face fell down at once. Her head drooped listlessly, and Qiu Zhang beside her patted Haley's back to comfort her. Although Professor Flitwick was a little disappointed, he still smiled and encouraged Haley. Only Mr. Joel Taylor and Mr. Sergey Rao successfully cast the sticking charm today. Professor Flitwick said loudly, "You two will come with me to the office to receive the reward later. Other students, I hope you will not be discouraged. The door to the magical world has just opened. Your future wizarding journey is still very long. Leading at this time does not mean anything." Professor Flitwick emphasized again. He asked the students to take out the school badges and then stick the badges on the students' robes one by one. Joel and Sergey followed Professor Flitwick out of the classroom and went all the way up to the Ravenclawdine's office on the 8th floor. Professor Flitwick tapped his wand on the door of the office. The area where the tip of the wand touched the wooden door glowed with blue light, which spread to the entire door. With a crisp click, Professor Flitwick pushed the door open. Joel followed Professor Flitwick into the office. Everything here was a size smaller, including robes, desks, glasses, except for books. The books were stacked crookedly up to the ceiling, and there were a lot of books scattered on the floor, making it difficult to find a place to put your feet. "Sorry, I haven't cleaned up these lovely books for a long time. It seems a bit messy." Professor Flitwick waved his wand and rolled up all the books on the floor and piled them in the corner. There was finally a space here. Professor Flitwick took the two of them to the desk and stepped on a stool to take down 2 sets of thick volumes from the messy bookshelf. "Come on, take them, study hard." Professor Flitwick jumped off the stool and rubbed his hands excitedly. "These are the last 2 sets of books Chadwick gave me. I have to think about what kind of reward is more appropriate next year." "Thank you, Professor." Joel bowed happily. Professor Flitwick quickly supported him, his wrinkled face full of appreciation and encouragement. He patted Joel on the shoulder and said, "Keep working hard." Joel didn't care about the dust on the book and held it tightly in his arms. "This is 200 gold galleons." Sergey pursed his lips tightly, his thin shoulders shrank inward, and his fingers tapped the book. "Thank you. Thank you, Professor." His voice trembled. The two said goodbye to Professor Flitwick and walked on the corridor on the 8th floor. There were many empty rooms here. At the end of the corridor was the divination classroom, and there was a smell of tea wafting from it. Joel, Sergey, who was following behind him, said, "Do you know where I can sell this set of books?" Joel turned around. "Are you short of money?" he asked softly. Sergey hesitated for a moment and nodded slightly. Joel felt that his brilliant golden hair had dimmed a little. Joel had felt that something was wrong with Sergey. Judging from his clothes and the ruby box he carried, he should be from a well-off family. Why would he agree to participate in selling playing cards with low profits? Not to mention that he did it to ease the relationship with his roommate. Judging from Sergey's personality, he would never do such a thing. But Joel didn't plan to find out. He was not interested in Sergey's family to that extent. Of course, Flourish and Blots. He raised his eyebrows. Sergey shook his head. "They won't take it. I sent a letter to ask about it 2 days ago. They are not sure about the authenticity of the signature. They are only willing to buy it at 10% off the base price. 7 volumes cost 21 galleons, but they are only willing to pay 18.9 galleons. Flourish and Blots won't take it." Joel pondered for a moment. "Then why did Senior Penelope say it was worth 200 gold galleons?" Sergey sighed. "That was at an auction in New York 5 years ago. A set of Chadwick's Magic signed by Mr. Chadwick Boot was sold for 200 gold galleons, but no signed version of Chadwick's Magic has been sold in the past 5 years. It's just that there is no demand for it. So this is what the 200 galleons meant." Joel was stunned for a moment, then patted Sergey's shoulder. Sergey didn't avoid the slightly intimate gesture. He just looked at Joel with a puzzled look. "I know a place that definitely sells this set of books," Joel said. "The price may be lower, but it's definitely a lot more than Flourish and Blots." "Really?" Sergey was skeptical. "Of course, I never lie." Joel walked downstairs. "I'll write to ask in the next 2 days. Wait for my news." Sergey absolutely didn't believe the first half of the sentence. He looked at Joel's back, shook his head, and followed him downstairs. Joel felt that his family background was mysterious, and Sergey also felt that Joel was unfathomable. The inexplicable card game. Plus Joel was an orphan in the Muggle world and had never been exposed to the magic world before. How did he know where the books were sold? But Joel hadn't asked about his own life experience before. Sergey thought about it and decided to do the same as Joel, respect each other and keep the bottom line. If he didn't say it, he would never ask. When he returned to the dormitory, Eddie was running around the room excitedly, and Alan was reading the book Advanced Potion Making with his ears blocked. "What's wrong with you?" Joel looked at Eddie, who was like a crazy monkey, and was very puzzled. "Professor White is back." Eddie swayed from side to side, with an excited expression. "My goddess, Professor White is back. Professor Claude White is their defense against the dark arts professor, only for the 1990 to 1991 school year. In the first week, she cancelled all the college's classes on the grounds that she was going to prepare dark magic creatures for class. Now she is finally back. Please recommend." Chapter 23, Defense Against the Dark Arts. Joel has been obsessed with magic these past 2 days. He keeps putting into practice what he has learned from the textbooks. In the Transfiguration class on Tuesday, although he failed to turn the match into a silver needle, he finally made one end of the match extremely sharp. After practicing hard for a class, he found that his progress bar for object transfiguration increased by 2.8%. Isn't this too slow? It takes nearly 40 classes to fully upgrade the object transfiguration, elementary. Moreover, the courses become more and more difficult as time goes by, and it is difficult for Joel to guarantee that he can increase the progress bar so much in each class. Sure enough, if you want to become stronger, you have to rely on Krypton Gold. However, Joel did not waste time. On Tuesday, he used his free night time to increase the progress of the levitation spell and the unlocking spell by 25%. With the 50% reward for completing the task before, he can barely make the parchment float 8 inches, 20.32 centimeters, off the table. This is undoubtedly a great improvement. It can't be compared with the perverted surgery, but it is much faster than Eddie and Alan. Sure enough, his learning ability is still very strong. Joel is a little happy. Early Wednesday morning, he came to the owl shed in the West Tower with a written letter. This is a round stone room where hundreds of owls stay and rest. In order to facilitate the owls to enter and exit, the shed is not equipped with glass. The cold air of early autumn in the UK hit Joel's face wetly, and with it came a foul smell. It has been unknown how long since this place has been cleaned. In addition to straw, there are a lot of owl droppings and mouse bones on the ground. Joel carefully avoided the droppings and came to the innermost perch of the shed. There were neat brown owls on it. These were all owls raised by Hogwarts. It only cost 5 copper nuts to ask them to help deliver a letter. Joel picked out an owl with smooth and shiny hair and a sturdy body. He went up to it and gently played with its feathers with his index finger. The owl lowered its head and gently nibbled at Joel's finger. "Go and deliver this letter to Mr. Borgin and Burke in Nocturne Alley, okay?" He picked out 5 of the remaining 7 nuts in his pocket and stuffed them into the pocket of the owl's left claw, then put the envelope on its right claw. The owl nodded, flapped its wings and flew up, flying around the shed twice before flying away from Hogwarts. Joel watched the owl gradually turn into a small dot and disappear in the distant sky. Then he withdrew his gaze. He turned around to go downstairs for breakfast, but saw Haley climbing up the spiral staircase. She was stunned for a moment, and the black hair on both sides of her cheeks was a little messy, as if she hadn't washed her hair early in the morning. "Well, I'll send a letter. What about you?" Haley said, her black hair still covering half of her face, and her whole body seemed to be shrinking in a protective shell. "If you come to the owl shed without sending a letter, are you here to tease the owls?" But Joel certainly wouldn't say that. He nodded, and the two fell into an awkward situation. Haley nodded, clenched the envelope in her hand and walked upstairs. Joel shook his head and walked downstairs. During breakfast, Edda's eyes never left the teacher's seat, and he kept staring at Professor Claire White. Her every frown and smile touched the hearts of many boys at the long table of the college. "Hey," Sergey complained dissatisfiedly. Because he was distracted to look at Claire, Eddie accidentally dropped a few drops of butter on Sergey's robe when he took the bread, which was particularly eye-catching on the black robe. Sorry. Edda's eyes still didn't leave Professor White. Sergey frowned and had to take out his wand to cast her cleaning spells on his robes. Joe ate slowly and glanced at Professor White in the teacher's seat from time to time. He was very curious about her future. According to Voldemort's curse, no one can be a professor of defense against the dark arts for 2 consecutive years. I wonder how Professor White will step down. Looking at the 7 defense against the dark arts professors in the original book, only Remus Lupin, who was exposed as a werewolf, left in a decent manner. However, Professor White's teaching level is really good. The first class opened their eyes. This is the resurrected zombie I caught from the Sahara Desert in Africa last week. This thing is extremely harmful to the human body, but they are not very dangerous, mainly because they are slow in movement. In the defense against the dark arts classroom on the 4th floor, Professor White asked them to leave their seats and move to the front of the classroom, and then pulled out a large cloth bag from the podium. The bag was bulging, and the zombie inside was still restless, trying to tear the bag open, but the seal of the bag was flashing with a light blue light, like a seal that bound it tightly. This is the seal that the Immigration and Exit Security Bureau asked me to put down, otherwise those sensitive and nervous Ministry of Magic employees would not allow me to bring it into the UK. Professor White shook her long burgundy hair and held the bag in one hand. I will release the resurrected zombie first, and then we will study slowly. You guys step back a little and don't get too close to me. She touched the seal of the bag with her right hand wand, and the seal fell off instantly. The resurrected zombie in the bag saw that the seal that had been blocking it had disappeared and struggled more fiercely in the bag. In a moment, the bag was torn into pieces, revealing its true appearance to the students. Several Ravenclaw girls were frightened, and their faces turned pale, and they stepped back repeatedly, and several Gryffindor boys even took 2 steps forward, wanting to see more carefully. Joel and several roommates were standing at the side of the podium, and they could clearly see the body of the resurrected zombie. This guy was about the same height as an ordinary person, with dark skin and small blisters all over his body, which was enough to make people with trypophobia feel very uncomfortable. His arms were unusually long and drooped at his knees, and his mouth was drooling while he was making unconscious roars. This is the resurrected zombie. Professor White introduced them. It moves a few points slower than the old woman. Unless you are attacked by surprise, there is basically no danger. Be careful. She suddenly yelled. A naughty Gryffindor boy wanted to touch the resurrected zombie from behind. Professor White reacted quickly and kicked the boy down when he was about to touch the blisters on his body. In a hurry, the kick was not controlled well, and the boy fell to the ground with his chest covered, and his face showed pain. The danger of the resurrected zombie lies in the densely packed blisters on its body. Professor White's face was icy, and she was obviously very angry. She shouted sternly, "These blisters will break if touched. Once the liquid inside falls on human skin, it will cause irreversible damage. Skin corrosion and necrosis are trivial matters. If they are not handled properly, they will face the risk of amputation." Professor White's hand speed was extremely fast. She poked her magic wand on the blisters of the resurrected zombie and immediately retracted it. The bubbles broke, and a stream of black liquid splashed out, hitting the floor, bubbling. A white smoke rose, and a pungent sour smell filled the classroom. These black liquids not only corroded and penetrated the floor, but also burned 3 or 4 centimeters deep holes in the stones between the floors. Please recommend, collect, and invest. There is also a reward for 30 consecutive days of updates and listing, which is also a lot of starting coins. Chapter 24, Professor White's Polarized Evaluation. The naughty Gryffindor boy's eyes were full of fear, and someone helped him up. The boy thanked Professor White repeatedly. He was not prepared at all just now. If he touched the body of the resurrected zombie and squeezed the blisters, the consequences of the black liquid splashing on him would be absolutely disastrous. Joel and others looked solemn. They never expected that the resurrected zombie would cause such a strong harm. The black liquid was much more powerful than the strong acid Joel had seen. This is the first class, and we have to face such a ferocious black magic creature? Professor White remained calm and continued. The way to deal with the resurrected zombie is not difficult. If you are attacked by it in the wild, remember a spell, Cadivacy. Next, you line up and practice this spell one by one. Professor White's actions are swift and decisive, which does not match her appearance. Seeing that the resurrected zombie still wanted to struggle, she chopped down the wand and hit the zombie's head directly. Hearing the zombie's wailing, she knew that the force was not light. Joel was startled by Professor White's action. He didn't expect that Professor White, as a wizard, would be so rough. Could it be another Malay mage? He muttered to himself, and an old man with a white beard waving a heavy wand appeared in his mind. The bubbles on the zombie's head burst open, and black liquid splashed out. Professor White shouted loudly, "Armor protection." A transparent barrier blocked Professor White, and the black liquid shot on the barrier of the armor spell with a hissing sound. The magic power of the armor spell was also corroded and disappeared by the black liquid. Professor White's wand made a circle in the air, and the round seal with a light blue light appeared again, hovering 3 or 4 inches above the resurrected zombie's head. The bubbles on the zombie's body were covered with a layer of frost, and the originally slow movements became even slower. So that's it. Joel finally figured out why the bubbles of the resurrected zombie had not been able to corrode and break the big cloth bag that trapped him before. It turned out to be because of this seal. "Hurry up, there are a lot of us," Professor White urged. More than 20 first-year students lined up in a long line. Qiu and Merita were a little scared when they saw the ugly resurrected zombie. They were not ready to face the dark magic creatures. Haley was the first in the line. The ugly resurrected zombie was close at hand. She looked determined and clenched her fists. "Be brave, Haley," she encouraged herself. This was just a trivial challenge. For her, there was a reason to persevere. If she couldn't even do this, how could she face the destined difficulties and obstacles in the future? Haley raised her wand to the resurrected zombie's cheek and shouted loudly, "Mischievously." The resurrected zombie wailed, twisting its body like a shy and coquettish little girl, and the blisters on its cheeks burst one by one, but this time the black liquid did not splash out, but flowed into its mouth along its face. The zombie's wailing stopped abruptly, and it stopped twisting its body. It stuffed its 2 long arms into its mouth, trying to take out the black liquid that had flowed into its mouth. But it was obviously useless. The strong corrosiveness of the black liquid had destroyed its mouth with small holes. "Good girl, hurry up, don't just stand there," Professor White shouted at the next student. "Cast the spell with confidence. The resurrected zombie has a very strong recovery ability. This spell can only hurt it for a while." Soon it was Joel's turn. The resurrected zombie was now covered with wounds, and most of the blisters on the surface of its body were broken. It looked very miserable. He raised his wand and pointed it at the zombie's face. The skin near the corners of its eyes was also corroded. The eyeballs slipped out and hung in the air, looking funny and terrifying. "Mischievously," he shouted. "Do you still think Professor White is your angel now?" Joel teased. They had just finished the defense against the dark arts class and were walking in the corridor. In Joel's opinion, this was definitely the most tiring class in the first grade. Even Professor Snape's potions could not beat it. At the end of the class, Professor White kicked the resurrected zombie's body into the sack little by little with her feet, which really overturned many people's impression of her. "Of course," Eddie said as a matter of course, with little stars in his eyes. "Isn't this kind of girl with strong martial arts more worthy of my admiration?" "Humph." Sergei snorted coldly, with an inexplicable attitude. Alan followed them, his little face pale, and still in shock. When it was Alan's turn to practice, his spell shattered all the blisters on the side of the resurrected zombie's face. The black liquid corroded the flesh of the cheek without stopping, and corroded most of the teeth. The half-broken teeth all fell to the ground. This scene left a big shadow on Alan. During the week that Professor White returned to Hogwarts to teach, the students had mixed opinions about her. Some boys did not like her vigorous style of action and strong personality, especially because Professor White had some violent tendencies. When she was teaching 5th-year students, she directly pulled a Gryffindor that attempted to attack students out of the water tank and almost tore it to pieces, which made many girls feel safe. Joel was not idle during this period. He was obsessed with books and greedily absorbed knowledge of the magic world. Reading makes people happy. But soon he was no longer happy. He was deducted 5 points by Professor Snape in the potion class. Joel had no way to effectively control the potion in the crucible, which made the potions he handed in a massive paste. The potions always merged before the water temperature reached a critical point, and there was no way to release the effect they were supposed to have. Fortunately, Snape had many students, and Joel was not Harry Potter. Snape only thought he was another little troll without a talent for potions, and did not treat him specially. He just liked to deduct points from them so that Slytherin could catch up. On Thursday of the third week, they had a flying class with Hufflepuff. Joel's talent for flying was almost zero, and he couldn't even summon a broomstick. However, the little badgers of Hufflepuff were very loyal, and most of them couldn't make the broomstick obey, which comforted Joel's wounded heart. The representative animal of Ravenclaw is the eagle, but they are really not good at flying. Sergei and Alan rode their brooms and floated slowly 1 foot, 30.48 centimeters, above the ground, and more people watched on the ground like Joel. Eddie and QIU were the ones being watched. They both had a good affinity for the broomstick. Judging from the Quidditch level of Ravenclaw, they had a good chance of joining the Quidditch team in the second year. On Friday morning, the owl finally delivered the long-awaited reply from Borgin and Burke. Please vote for me. Chapter 25, Borgin and Burke's letter. At the long table of Ravenclaw, Eddie looked at the owl that was resting in front of Joel with some curiosity. Did you buy anything? No, I sent a letter. Joel took the letter off the owl's right claw, and the owl put its head into Joel's glass and took 2 sips of milk, then flapped its wings and flew away. Eddie wondered, who did Joel send the letter to? Wasn't he an orphan? Sergei saw the letter in Joel's hand and remembered the place where he had mentioned the collection of books before, so he leaned towards Joel, but Eddie stood between him and Joel, so he couldn't see the content of the letter at all. Eddie, shall we change seats? Joel noticed this problem and hurriedly called Eddie. Eddie was confused, but still gave up his seat, watching Sergei and Joel huddled together to read the letter with their heads against each other, and he asked Alan, when did they become so close? Alan shook his head and forked a piece of ham into his mouth. Marita suddenly appeared. She was not afraid of the cold. She changed into a pleated skirt and her school robe. It can be seen that her blonde hair was carefully groomed. She tied a ponytail at the back of her head and deliberately exposed her swan-like neck. This outfit can only be called cute on the 11-year-old Marita, and it has nothing to do with sexiness. Alan? She greeted Alan. Long time no see. Okay, long time no see, Marita. Alan still couldn't change his habit of being shy when meeting girls. Can we go to the Black Lake to sit this afternoon? Marita said softly. Just the two of us? Alan glanced at Sergei, who was concentrating on discussing something with Joel, and had no time to pay attention to him. He hesitated for 2 seconds and then nodded. Okay. He agreed, and Marita smiled. Then we'll see you at 4 p.m. She happily waved her hand and went to find her good friend Qiu Zhang. Under Sergei's gaze, Joel peeled off the letter mark on the envelope with Borgin and Burke's, took out the letter inside and opened it, and read it with Sergei. To Mr. Joel Taylor, I have received your previous letter. I'm very interested in the 2 sets of Chadwick's Magic signed by Chadwick Booth. But after Mr. Chadwick's death, there are more and more fake signed copies of Chadwick's Magic on the market, even to the point of being indistinguishable from the real thing. Therefore, before purchasing, I must personally verify that the 2 signatures are signed by Chadwick himself, which is crucial to the value of the collection. If you are sure you want to sell these 2 sets of books, Borgin and Burke's and Nocturne Alley welcomes you at any time. The letter was not long, and Borgin and Burke's meaning was very clear. If you want to sell the books, you must bring the books to his store and let him personally confirm whether they are authentic. How about it? Sell it. Joel looked at Sergei. Sell it. He won't cheat you, right? Sergei hesitated and nodded. It shouldn't be, Joel said. After all, he has his own store. This kind of dirty thing can't be done openly, otherwise it will ruin his reputation, but it is inevitable to lower the price. That's fine, let's go together when we get back. Joel thought about it. The nearest holiday to them is Christmas, which is still 2 months away. He didn't want to wait that long. He had to get his first pot of gold quickly and start his own business of making money, otherwise he didn't know when he would be able to exchange for the source of magic. I can't wait that long. I plan to go this weekend. Weekend? Sergei frowned. Why are you leaving the campus? I have my own way. Do you want to come with me? Sergei stared at Joel, feeling that he could no longer see through this rumor. Okay, call me when you want to take action. He nodded in response. After breakfast, Joel followed everyone to the underground potion classroom, where he once again endured Professor Snape's sarcasm like a storm. I think your head is no less than that of a giant monster with sphinx, Mr. Taylor. Professor Snape said coldly. Joel looked down at the paste in the crucible in front of him and said nothing. This time Joel made a mistake in the fusion step again. The porcupine quills placed at the end and the lionfish spine powder put in earlier merged prematurely, making the pot of rejuvenating agent completely useless. 5 points deducted from Ravenclaw. After deducting points from the college, Snape left Joel triumphantly. Don't be sad. Eddie comforted Joel with a sad face after class. Snape is like this. He will not let go of other people's pain. He was also Snape's key target, and Snape would also deduct several points in a class. The 4 people in the dormitory walked together in the dim underground corridor of the castle. At the stairs leading to the auditorium, they saw Catelyn, the prefect, standing there with her arms folded across her chest. She was wearing a brown high ponytail as usual, and her face was serious. Mr. Taylor and Mr. Carmichael, I want to talk to you two. She called out Joel and Eddie's names. The two followed Caitlin out of the hall and onto the lawn outside Hogwarts Castle. First year Slytherin and Gryffindor students had just finished their flying lessons and followed Madam Hooch into the hall with their brooms. You two, Caitlin pursed her lips, her expression very much like Professor McGonagall. Can you explain to me about potions? In the first 3 weeks of school, the two of you have deducted 56 points from Ravenclaw in potions alone. That's no small number. You have to know that our Quidditch team is not strong, which puts us at a disadvantage in the competition for the House Cup. Therefore, we attach great importance to the points earned in daily classes, she explained to the two. If you continue to deduct points, not only will we not win the House Cup this school year, we will also be at the bottom of the 4 houses. It's not all our fault. Eddie protested. Snape was obviously too strict with us. How could he deduct points from students like that? I heard that he never deducts points from students in Slytherin House. It's Professor Snape, Mr. Carmichael, Caitlin emphasized. I know Professor Snape is more partial to Slytherin students. She thought for a moment and found an appropriate word to describe Professor Snape's behavior. But we can't change Professor Snape, so why not change ourselves? Caitlin said, first year potions isn't that difficult, right? Please vote for me. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.